Okay, we're recording.
Thank you. I'm gonna try not to get any closer to this mic because it's like insanely sensitive. Yeah, no, but I'm so used to having to be so close and I don't, or else I'll blow everyone's ears out. Um, good evening. Seeing a presence of a quorum, I am calling the May 4th, 2026 regular meeting of the Town Council to order at 6:31 p.m. Please be advised that this meeting is being held in person and that the remote access option for members of the public is provided as a courtesy only. In the event of technology issues with the remote connection, the meeting will continue in person as scheduled as long as there is a quorum of the council present in the town room or through technological means. Chapter 2 of the Acts of 2025 extended through June 30, 2027, the ability of public bodies to meet without a quorum of the council physically present at the meeting location, although a quorum of the council is present in the town room. This meeting is being recorded and is accessible in real time via Zoom, by phone, and as a live broadcast on Amherst Media Channel 9 and at amherstmedia.org. I will call upon each counselor by the name they have indicated that they would like to be addressed. This will indicate that we can hear you and you can hear us. Counselor Brevick.
Present.
Counselor Cano Martin.
Present.
Andy Churchill.
Yes.
Anna Devlin Gauthier.
Present.
You've got a very loud one too. Lynn Griesemer.
Present.
Mandy Jo Haneke is present. Counselor Lord. Sam McLeod.
Present.
Pam Rooney.
Here.
Counselor Ryan.
I'm here.
Kathy Shane.
Here.
Jennifer Taub.
Here.
And Counselor Walker.
Here.
If counselors have technical issues, please let the council clerk know or call a point of personal privilege. There will be one public comment period during the general public comment. If you are in the town room, please sign up with the town council clerk to make public comment. If you are attending remotely, I will ask for you to raise your hand in the Zoom application when we reach the time period for public comment. Just a few notes on the agenda as we move to announcements. We are going to take items 7A, 8A, and 8B up together. So they will be sort of taken as one big presentation. That is the budget and the water and sewer rates and the informational request related to water and sewer charges. And we are adding an extra counselor comments right after the hearings, and there are no hearings, so it will be right after announcements. In announcements, the May 11th, the Finance Committee is holding a public hearing on the budget. I have not noticed this as a joint council meeting because I've not heard of counselors that are not on finance that wish to go. If there are, please email me and I will ask the clerk if I think there will be a quorum of the council present to notice it as a council meeting also. Their budget review on May 7th is noticed as a joint council meeting. But that one and the May 21st meetings are the only ones that are noticed as joint council meetings for the budget review at this point in time. There are no hearings. And so we are going to go to the additional counselor comment period, and I'm going to recognize Counselor Walker at this time.
Thank you, Mandy Jo. I also would like to recognize Counselor Lord, Counselor Cano Martin, and Counselor Brevick to just read a joint statement that we have.
Great.
Good evening. We want to take a moment to speak directly to the racist letter that was circulated in our community last week. First, we must be clear that harm was done. And not just abstract harm, but real fear, real pain, and real re-traumatization for members of our community, particularly Black and Brown residents and those of African descent. To those residents, we see you, we hear you, and we acknowledge that this moment is not new. It is part of a pattern, one that shows up not just in moments like this, but in everyday experiences, in microaggressions, in exclusions, and in the way systems do or do not show up for you. The town has already issued a statement condemning this letter and affirming that Amherst is a community built on inclusion, respect, and the belief that every resident deserves to feel safe, welcomed, and valued. We stand firmly in those values, but tonight we also need to be honest. Values alone are not enough. Because the question before us is not just whether people should feel safe in Amherst, it is whether they actually do feel safe and whether they are safe. And for many Black and Brown residents, the answer is complicated.
I'll continue. We often speak in the town room about equity initiatives, about investments like a BIPOC youth center, a multicultural center, or the continued development and expansion of CRESS. And we hear questions including, why is this needed? Who benefits? Is this the right investment? Tonight, we can add this to part of our answer. This is why. Because safety is not just the absence of violence, it is the presence of support, resources, and systems that people trust. If a resident feels targeted, unsafe, or threatened, who do they call? If we ask them to call CRESS, are we ensuring that CRESS is fully resourced, fully staffed, and available when they need it? If not, what are we asking people to rely on? If we say we value belonging, where are the spaces that actively build it? Where are the investments that ensure young people of color in this town feel seen, supported, and protected, not just in theory, but in practice?
We cannot continue to celebrate ourselves as a progressive community without confronting the gaps between our intentions and our actual impact. Because the truth is, experiences like receiving this letter do not happen in isolation. They exist alongside the everyday realities that many residents navigate quietly. So tonight, we are calling on ourselves as a council to move beyond statements of recommitment and toward meaningful action. That means investing in the systems that actually produce safety, resourcing the programs we ask people to depend on, prioritizing spaces and initiatives that support Black and Brown residents, and being willing to ask harder questions about where we have fallen short. This is about the responsibility we hold to the people living in this community. We have an opportunity in this moment to respond with more than just words. This moment should not end with a statement. It must lead to action. We are calling on this council to engage fully and honestly in the conversations that too often get delayed, softened, or avoided.
We must be willing to confront the gap between how we see ourselves as a town and the reality that many of our residents are living every day. We are calling on this body to invest in real, tangible ways in the spaces, programs, and systems that our residents can actually use. Not symbolic commitments, but resources that are accessible, reliable, and designed to keep people safe. We also call on the town manager to share more information with residents about this incident and any ongoing efforts, including the investigation, so that our community is informed, prepared, and able to support one another. Because right now, we are asking people to navigate fear without a clear understanding of what systems are in place to protect them, how we can expect residents how can we expect residents to feel safe when the support we point to are under-resourced, incomplete, and unavailable when they are needed the most? This is about more than just this letter. This is about our response and what comes next. We see this moment as a preface to the actions that the council must take. And so we urge our fellow councilors in the days ahead to sit with this, to reflect honestly, to listen more closely to the lived experiences of people in this community, especially those who have been telling us consistently that something is missing. Let us move forward with more aligned with our community's actual reality and their actual needs, because our responsibility is not just to respond, but it is to lead. And finally, to our Black and Brown residents, we want to say this clearly, that you are valued here, you matter here. Our community is richer, stronger, and more whole because of you. You deserve to feel safe, you deserve to be protected, you deserve to live in a town that does everything in its power to ensure your safety, your dignity, and your well-being. And we recognize that this is not enough, and our responsibility to make it true in practice and in policy, and how we show up for you every single day still stands. Thank you.
Thank you, councilors. Are there any other councilor comments at this time? There will be another period at the typical part of our meeting too. Seeing none, we will move to general public comment. Anyone wishing to make general public comment who is attending remotely, please raise your hand in the Zoom application. If you are present in the town room and have not signed up with the council clerk, please do so now. Residents are welcome to make public comments on matters within the jurisdiction of the town council. The council will not engage in a dialogue or comment on a matter raised during general public comment Public comments are not reflective of the opinions of the town council. The First Amendment broadly protects individuals' rights to address the government, to speak and to express themselves, including their right to say hateful and offensive things. I am generally unable to shut those commenters down under the First Amendment to the U.S. Constitution unless their level of speech falls within an exception articulated by the courts, such as fighting words, true threats to a particular individual, harassment of a particular individual, or incitement of imminent lawless activity. If a question exists as to whether a particular speaker is engaging in unprotected speech, I must defer to the principle of freedom of speech. There are 3 hands raised on Zoom of people who wish to make public comments. How many people in the town room have signed up for public comment? 5. Each commenter will have 3 minutes to make their comment. We will start with the town room.
Andrew Brace.
Andrew, please come on up, state your name and where you live, and make your comment.
Hello, my name is Andrew Brace, DPW Association President. I'm also the Chief Operator of the wastewater treatment plant. I wanted to come back and just give a quick update. We're still working towards a finalized contract. It's May now, so DPW employees have now been without a contract and cost of living raises for almost 1 year. It's especially concerning given the current economic climate. Throughout this process, timely communication and access to information from the town has presented a challenge, but is an important key to moving this process forward efficiently. We received a response from the town manager yesterday following our last response sent to the town on April 16th. We were able to review that response today, and we'll be providing a response to the town as soon as possible. And our goal remains to reach a timely resolution. Thank you.
Thank you, Andrew, for coming tonight. Maria Kopicki, please unmute yourself, state your name and where you live, and make your comment.
Thank you, Maria Kopicki, South Amherst. I was going to make a comment, and I still am, about the horrible letter that was inflicted on some of our fellow residents here. And I was going to call on the council to do something, and I'm really grateful to Councilors Walker, Lord, Breivik, and Connell Martin for taking that first step already. Thank you very much. The response of the town that was posted on the website was tepid at best. It's also, you spoke to what has to be done much better than I ever could, so I won't step on your toes on that, but I do want to point out that we have a serious, this also illustrates a serious communication problem in the town. I only knew about this because I get the notifications. A lot of people in town probably have no idea what's going on, and we have to figure out a way to actually communicate directly and with all of our communities so that people can know when something like this happens, because this is a safety issue, really. So please, we got to figure this out. The website is just not an effective means of communication. So anyway, thank you, counselors. And yes, please, town council, we're looking to you as our elected officials to take a much more robust stance and action about this. Thank you.
Thank you for coming tonight, Maria. Athena?
Sarah Johnson.
Sarah, please come on up, say your name and where you live, and make your comment.
Hi, my name is Sarah Johnson. I live in District 3. I'm coming here to speak as a mom of 2 kids that attend Crocker Farm Elementary. I am deeply concerned that the proposed town budget gives the elementary schools less funding than the school committee determined was necessary. Cuts to interventionists and special education teachers will have bigger impacts on the school community and Amherst as a whole. I've heard special education teachers giving public comment on how they won't be able to meet the needs of students on IEPs. These cuts do not eliminate costs, they simply shift them. If families feel their children's needs are not being met, they will choose to leave the district, taking funding with them. My older child received reading intervention support in first grade and really benefited from it, as many kids do. Without enough early literacy support, more students will get referred to special education later, which is significantly more expensive per student. Cuts to special education teachers and interventionists will impact the entire school community because general education teachers will need to absorb the unmet needs. This will affect the education of all students in the elementary schools. The town council needs to put the investment into our schools now to avoid even higher costs in the future through increased special education referrals and through families leaving the district. Investing in our schools now is both the responsible and cost-effective choice. Failing to do so risks higher long-term costs. Amherst values equity and inclusion, but the students who struggle the most will lose the most from these cuts. With this lesser budget, the town council is effectively deciding who gets supported in the schools. I urge the town council to reconsider and fully fund the schools at the level recommended by the school committee. Thanks for your time.
Thank you for coming tonight, Sarah. Lauren Michael, please unmute yourself, state your name and where you live, and make your comment.
Yes, hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, hi, it's Lauren Mills. Sorry, the last name is incorrect. I live in South Amherst, and I am speaking to support the CSSJC. My comment is, you know a lot by the way someone knocks on your door. In Moroccan culture, there may be several door knockers that alert those inside who is at the door, and to move with care and awareness, embracing modesty and humility, respect and courtesy to all who enter. The CSSJC and the Human Rights Commission have been knocking on the door of this town council, sometimes softly and sometimes loudly and urgently, because in the town of Amherst, there is a serious issue of respect for the Black and Brown residents, our immigrant population, and social activists, and rising youth are treated, and how they are treated. It is not the harmed residents who should take on the town's responsibility to work to mandate that the town is a welcoming, safe place for all. Does the town want to be a safe and welcoming place for Black and Brown residents or not? Do you have safety and accountability as the top priority for your town governance or not? That is free from harassment, harmful tactics to get information about residents who live, work, and go to school in this town. Just as a zip code can be an indicator of determinants of health, so can local town policy. It can determine whether I can walk to a grocery store or a health clinic, whether there is enough affordable housing. Are Amherst families and residents dealing with substance abuse, mental health, homelessness, access to health care, and healthy food? These things can also impact our communities if not addressed and seen as a priority. I want to see the town take responsibility through its policies and address the issues that are affecting residents in school, in their communities concerning surveillance, over-policing, and targeting vulnerable populations. I support the motion for CSSJC and the Human Rights Commission to have a joint meeting with the town council to discuss how the town entities such as APD are informed to respond, assist with ICE-related investigations and activities. Unfortunately, hate speech is directed at immigrants and Black citizen groups in difficult political times. According to Mass, state, and local laws restricting speech and political conduct, municipalities have the ability to say that speech inciting hate and hurt, divisiveness, and those groups participating in such actions are not permitted on town or private land and property. Black residents such as myself would feel that town leadership were taking the disturbing letter written that was brought to your attention by the CSSJC more seriously if it included in its response this statement written by the town. You said I have, how many more?
You are over time, actually. That's why I asked you to wrap up.
Okay, I'm sorry. Okay, I just want to say we should remind ourselves of the public violence and lynching of George Floyd on May 25th, 2020, and the times during civil rights movement when Blacks had to be careful of where they traveled. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your comments tonight, Lauren. Athena?
Laura Yvonne Steinman.
Laura, please come on up, state your name and where you live, and make your comment.
Good evening. I'm Lori Von Steinman. I'm a resident of Florence, Massachusetts. I am the art teacher at Wildwood. I'm also the LGBTQIA art club facilitator. I have these little scrolls tonight with little like reminder twists on them. In it is a link to an article that came out on April 7th from the National Education Association. And it's called What's Causing Teacher Burnout. And it specifically talks about how it has to do with the laws and the officials that are making those laws and passing those budgets that are creating the burnout. So I'd ask people to read it carefully and to note that the school committee has presented scenario 2, which I've said before, which restores the interventionists and specialist teachers. The budget that's being presented tonight does not show that. So again, make sure that you're looking at the exact like numbers, not just the percentage, because they're based on different starting points. Also in the presentation, it talks about how Amherst schools are presented as like some of the finest. And as we're going forward and going into what's happening with the elementary schools, with Amethyst Brook, this is the time to really invest and create sustainable programs. It's really not going to look good at all if you have this new building and then all of a sudden there's not enough teachers and there's a ton of complaints and a lot of staff that leave after the first year because there is a program that wasn't built to be sustainable. I really encourage each and every one of you to come by the elementary schools and just get a feel for what it's like, even for 10 to 15 minutes. All the work that we put into the families, the kids, and all the different programs. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Laura, for coming tonight. If you give them to our town clerk, our council clerk, she will be able to distribute them to us at our break. Thank you. Bob Newcomb, please unmute yourself, state your name and where you live, and make your comment.
Hi, my name is Bob Newcomb. I'm from District 4 here in town. I'm speaking an opportunity. First off, counselors, your statement at the beginning of this presentation was excellent. Thank you very much. The unfortunate closing of Hampshire College gives a potential community boost to be able to use the rec center, find a way to be able to keep that with access for the recreation programs in town, with the Arms Pool and Gym being closed during the day since there's students in the building. Having a facility like this available all day would be nice for general recreation and health and safety, lap, swim, adult lessons, even preschool lessons. And the group that I represent is a master swimming group known as UMAMA, and we have been running the pool down there, so we would be a revenue stream. We've been running it down there for 5 years, and we would like nothing more than to be able to continue to use that facility. It is I think this facility is a jewel in town, being able, the recreation department to be able to use that and utilized by the town as a whole. This would also be an opportunity for health and fitness for many who may not be able to afford one of the health centers or anything like that in town. So I think it's something to consider, to be able to have a facility like that at the use of the town. Thank you.
Thank you for coming tonight, Bob.
Thank you.
Vincent O'Connor.
Vincent, please come on up, state your name and where you live, and make your comment.
I'm Vincent O'Connor. I live at 175 Summer Street, apartment 12. I'm here to deliver some straightforward comments about the manager's budget. First, I want to ask the council to ignore anything about after FY27 because of the unstable nature of the federal government. Just ignore it. It's there on paper, but it's not worth a single comment of yours. Second, ignore everything about the details of the FY27 budget because the council does not have committees of jurisdiction that could challenge any particular department's details. But instead, focus on the fact that the manager's budget proposes $483,609 less for the elementary schools than was voted by the elementary school committee. Focus also on the efforts of Senator Comerford and Representative Dahm, who have been making real efforts to get more money to Western Mass. In past years, I have done analyses of the state budget versus what was projected in the manager's budget, and literally the state budget has exceeded the manager's budget estimates for school money by hundreds of thousands of dollars. Every year I've done the analysis, it exceeds the manager's sentence. So what I would like to recommend to the council is that the council summarily vote the school budgets for both the elementary and secondary school, regional schools, as proposed by the school committees, and as part of that motion, return the manager's budget to him for adjustments to his proposed budget consistent with your approval of the budgets recommended to you by both school committees. Anything other than this will, I think, send a message to the parents and children of the elementary and secondary schools that you do not care.
Thank you for coming tonight, Vincent. Aaron Evans James, please unmute yourself, state your name and where you live, and make your comment.
Yes, hi. I just want to like voice my support and like encouragement of the town council and the town as a whole to consider Hampshire College, the property and the institution as a valuable resource, and to not have it get sold off to some developer or some for-profit corporation that might turn it into something that is not beneficial to the Amherst community. I mean, I'm currently in the on the group that's trying to save the Hampshire like community as a community of ourselves, but I'm not sure whether that's going to actually be something that pans out. However, I think that the town as a whole has an opportunity to embrace the Hampshire campus as a resource, and I think that is something that the town council should discuss at some point. So.
Thank you for coming tonight, Erin. Athena?
Lucy Payson.
Lucy, please come on up. State your name and where you live.
Hi, my name is Lucy Payson. I'm a student at UMass Amherst, but I'm living off campus right now in North Amherst. I'm here to read my proposed proclamation to make June Chronic Migraine Awareness Month. So I'll read it now. Whereas headache disorders affect more than 40 million Americans and over 1.1 billion people worldwide, whereas headache diseases are among the leading causes of disability globally, disproportionately affecting women, veterans, and historically marginalized communities, whereas an estimated 4 million Americans live with chronic migraines, experiencing reoccurring symptoms 15 or more days per month, yet access to specialized care remains limited. Whereas significant racial and socioeconomic disparities persist, with Black, Latinx, and Native or Indigenous populations facing higher rates of underdiagnosis and inadequate treatment. Whereas veterans and military personnel experience higher rates of post-traumatic headache and migraines due to traumatic brain injury sustained while in service. Whereas cluster headache is recognized as one of the most debilitating medical conditions affecting approximately 1 in 1,000 Americans, whereas there is a severe shortage of headache specialists with fewer than 800 certified headache medicine specialists nationwide, creating significant barriers to care, particularly in rural and underserved communities, whereas headache diseases place a severe economic burden, costing U.S. companies over $78 billion annually in lost productivity and healthcare expenses, whereas the symptoms of headache disorders extend beyond head pain, often impacting vision, cognitive function, balance, and daily activities, with attacks lasting hours to days, whereas stigma and misinformation have historically stifled research, treatment innovation, and public awareness, leaving many patients undiagnosed and untreated, whereas individuals with headache disorders are at an increased risk for developing depression and suicidal ideation, underscoring the urgent need for comprehensive care and mental health support, and whereas all individuals living with headache diseases deserve equitable, timely, and affordable access to effective treatments to improve their quality of life. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Lucy. Carrie Bernstein, please unmute yourself, state your name and where you live, and make your comment.
Hi, thank you. My name is Carrie Bernstein. I was a former Amherst resident. I lived in Amherst for over 20 years. My parents still live in Amherst, and I spoke to them about their support of this issue, and I live in Northampton now. I'm here because I want to help form a bridge between the alumni, Hampshire community members, and residents who are working within the umbrella of an organization called Hampshire Next in order to try to find the next best use of Hampshire College's campus and to continue to forward its educational and community missions. And just to extend the awareness of this effort and where we currently stand, and that we look forward to working with the town of Amherst to bring this place to its highest purposes and to work collaboratively with the town. The group is trying to raise at least $5 million by May 16th in order to help the trustees of Hampshire College protect the parcels that are currently, the debt is currently called on. And we will be continuing to work collaboratively with internally and with community members to develop the vision in a democratic and collaborative manner. So just to raise your awareness of this organization called Hampshire Next, that is alumni, community, faculty, staff, student, and community members working together to try to bring the next stage of the Hampshire College in the face of its ending as its current existence. Thank you.
Thank you, Carrie, for your comments tonight. Anyone else in the town room? No? Okay. Ellen JG, please unmute yourself, state your name and where you live, and make your comment.
Hi, thank you. I am Ellen Jedri Gadera and resident of South Amherst, and I'm speaking today on behalf of the steering committee of the ARPS Special Education Parents Advisory Council to express our opposition to the proposed cuts in impacting special education programs for the coming year. These cuts will account for a 20% reduction in full-time special education teachers and paraprofessionals in current programs, and a cut of that proportion will have devastating results on our children, teachers, and staff. We ask you, therefore, to reverse this course of action and to not make these cuts and to fund the budget as requested by the school committee. Every year, our dedicated teachers are being asked to do more than with less. They're at their breaking point. And after a steady trend of cuts over the past number of years, we are truly operating with the bare minimum. We're not keeping basic programs fully operational. Basic functions related to compliance with our children's IEPs have seriously faltered. And at CPAC, we hear report after report from families of unmet students' needs, of lack of sufficient staff support, and of institutional strains that send our students into crisis. We also hear from teachers and staff who tell us they do not feel sufficiently supported to meet our students' needs. Their current caseloads already exceed past years, and especially as more and more staff than ever have quit or resigned in our positions recently. We are often told it's a difficult year, that cuts must be made, that everything will be okay and students will get what they need and what they're entitled to. But our own special education teachers are telling us otherwise. And in a recent letter to Town Council on April 16th, special education teachers from Wildwood and Fort River outlined in great detail the grave impacts of these cuts for Amethyst Brook Elementary, including dramatically increasing caseloads to 14 to 20 students and reducing the delivery of needed services. This is in the context of more students in the new school. We need to listen to our own educators who are telling us that these cuts will be devastating for special education students at Amethyst Brook, and we at CPAC stand with our teachers. If these cuts go through as currently outlined, please be clear-eyed in what to expect, despite assurances from administrators otherwise. Expect that fewer teachers will lead to a decline in our ability to meet our children's IEPs and 504s. Expect more students sent into crisis as fewer teachers and paras are on hand to support them. Expect more and more teachers and paras resigning to find better positions elsewhere. And expect more and more families calling for out-of-district placements or choicing out of our schools or leaving for charters. As always, we ask that in times of financial hardships, you do not sacrifice what is non-negotiable, but instead ensure that any and all cuts are made that come from areas that do not harm our most vulnerable student populations. Thank you all for your time.
Thank you for coming tonight, Ellen. Evan Naismith, please unmute yourself, state your name and where you live, and make your comment. And may I ask that those in the audience please speak quieter so it does not disrupt the meeting. Evan, you may go on.
Hi, guys. Evan Naismith, District 5. I support absolutely everything that Ellen just said, very much so. She's just one of many people who every single week call up this very board and singing the same song. Amherst has great ideas, but too little revenue to fund them. Allowing taxable home building at Hampshire College would significantly increase revenues. That makes your jobs easier. Recent development has netted residents an additional $1.9 million a year in property tax revenues. Imagine how much worse all of these phone calls would be if you didn't have that revenue right now. Building out the tax base won't happen overnight, but I think most of you know it's the right thing to do. Property taxes aren't the only reason to permit partial development of the HC property. 68% of Amherst renters are cost burdened, compared to only 21% of homeowners, meaning by definition, most A supermajority of Amherst renters struggle to afford basic human needs. The Survival Center has had to open a satellite location to address the literal hunger our housing policies have wrought. The burden of Amherst's anti-renter policies falls disproportionately on minority populations who only own homes at half the rate of white residents. The AHRA has documented this thoroughly. We must do better. There's a very clear blueprint for helping renter affordability, and increasing the supply of homes and rentals is a primary tool. Allowing home building at Amherst College would help renters afford to thrive in Amherst. It is progressive. To your credit, most of Amherst's regressive policies are remnants of the archaic town meeting government, but we need to change those policies now. While the Hampshire College situation is a tragedy in its own right, it's also a massive opportunity for Amherst. So I ask this board, please, assert local control now through zoning and purchase options. Ensure that all development is taxable. Our teachers, our DPW workers, our infrastructure, they require more funding. This is an incredible opportunity to avoid a future override and painful cuts. Also, please permit development at a very ambitious scale. Affordable housing, senior housing, student housing. It's not a NIMBY problem because it's nobody's backyard. There is enough room for everything. Amherst has a once-in-a-generation opportunity to underwrite its own progressive future. Please don't let this opportunity pass. Thank you.
Thank you for coming tonight, Evan. John, please unmute yourself, state your name and where you live, and make your comment.
I'm John Nunnally. I'm a resident in South Amherst. And I think my issue seems rather trivial in light of all of the social justice and educational budgetary problems. But I would like to reinforce the message raised by Bob Newcomb earlier about the swimming community and the prior speaker's recognition that the Hampshire College closing is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity for the town to take control of very valuable resources which could be put to use. I'm a member of the swimming community. I have been a swimmer here in Amherst now for 25 years. And when we arrived here, there was a plethora of pools at the university and the colleges and the town. But over time, the infrastructure has aged, and these pools are slowly coming offline. And we have a crisis. Today, there are several organizations that use the Hampshire facility for swimming, including the LSSE program, as well as master's groups and recreational age group swimming programs. So I would just encourage the counselors to take special attention to the opportunities that this Hampshire College closure creates for us, obviously both in terms of housing, but certainly in terms of recreation. So I urge you all to see what you can do to help support the swimming pool and the programs that come from that. Thank you.
Thank you, John, for coming tonight. Elizabeth, please unmute yourself, state your name and where you live, and make your comment.
Hi, good evening. My name is Elizabeth Patel. I'm a District 2 resident and taxpayer. I'm also Amherst Public School staff and a proud parent of 2 successful graduates from our public schools. I want to echo what previous parents and educators have stated here tonight. I'm concerned about the cuts to our elementary schools and want to emphasize the importance of having live, trusting community of educators to embrace the needs of all our children. A student's education might be supported by some artificial intelligence, as is seen in the education trend of our whole nation. But it's all the humans in a child's life that make a difference, whether the support's coming from arts integration specialists or from any academic or individualized intervention. These are people in our education community that weave together learning with our students. And I've seen it in action. I've seen it with my own children. One who is a graduate from college and the other one who chose not to go to college, and who are both successful. So that is real, to me, testament to what we have done in the past. And I really feel that we have been dwindling and shaving off funding for our schools, and it's only going to make matters worse instead of better. So please provide more funding for our schools. Thank you.
Thank you for coming tonight, Elizabeth. Seeing no other hands, the public comment period is closed, and we will be moving on to the consent agenda. The consent agenda, the following items were selected because they were considered to be routine and it was reasonable to expect they would pass with no controversy. To remove an item from the consent agenda for discussion later in the meeting, ask that it be removed when the president lists the consent agenda items. The request to remove an item from the consent agenda does not require a second. I just want to note that the items 8A and B are referrals only. We will have a budget presentation and a water and sewer presentation and opportunity to ask questions, even if we refer the motions and adopt the motions on consent agenda. So the items are as follows. I will read it, and then if there are any removals, I'll ask for that, and if not, I'll make the motion. So it's to move the following items in the printed motions thereunder and approve those items as a single unit. 6A, adoption of the ALS Awareness Month proclamation. 6B, adoption of Jewish American Heritage Month proclamation. 6C, adoption of Migraine and Headache Awareness Month proclamation. 8A, referral of FY27 budget, capital inventory, and capital improvement program. 8B, referral of proposed FY27 water and sewer rates amendments to regulations. 8F, action on charter review committee beyond the charter recommendations. And 11A, approval of minutes, the April 27th, 2026 regular meeting. Are there any requests to remove items? Councillor Cano-Martin.
Yes, could we remove 8F, please?
Yes. Um, 8F has been removed. Are there any other requests? Seeing none, is there a second on the consent motion?
Griesmer, second.
Thank you. Okay, no discussion. We will move to a vote. We start with Sam McLeod.
Aye.
Pam Rooney.
Yes.
Counselor Ryan.
Aye.
Kathy Shane.
Yes.
Jennifer Taub.
Yes.
Counselor Walker.
Yes.
Counselor Brevik.
Yes.
Counselor Cano-Martin.
Yes.
Andy Churchill.
Yes.
Anna Devlin Gauthier.
Aye.
Lynn Griesemer.
Aye.
Mandy Jo Haneke is an aye. Counselor Lord.
Aye.
The motion passes 13-0. We will now move on to the proclamation readings. I was the sponsor of the ALS Awareness Month proclamation. So I will read the last now therefore, and it's now therefore we, the Amherst Town Council, do hereby proclaim the month of May 2026 as ALS Awareness Month to increase public awareness of the dire circumstances of people living with ALS, acknowledge the terrible impact this disease has on those individuals and their families, and support research to eradicate this disease. And we call upon residents to support ALS research, advocate for increased funding, and stand in solidarity with those affected by this relentless disease. 6B is Jewish American Heritage Month proclamation. Jennifer, would you like to read this?
I'll just read the first and last whereas. Whereas on April 20th, 2006, after resolutions passed unanimously in both houses of Congress, President George W. Bush proclaimed that May would be Jewish American Heritage Month to recognize the more than 350-year history of Jewish contributions to the United States of America and American culture. Whereas, according to August 2025 Federal Bureau of Investigation reporting of hate crime statistics, a total of 3,096 incidents related to religion were reported. The largest of reported religious hate crimes were 1,938 anti-Jewish incidents, accounting for 69% of the religion-related incidents. Jewish Americans account for roughly 2% of the U.S. population. Excuse me. Now, therefore, we, the Amherst Town Council, do hereby proclaim the month of May 2026 to be Jewish American Heritage Month in the town of Amherst and encourage all to celebrate the history and contributions of Jewish Americans to our culture and society.
Thank you, Jennifer. Our next proclamation is the Migraine and Headache Awareness Month proclamation. Community sponsor Lucy Payson read nearly all of that proclamation during public comment, but Councilor Brevik or Lucy, would you like to read the now therefore clauses?
If Lucy would like to come back up to read the now therefore, she can go ahead. Otherwise, I'm happy to read it.
Lucy, would you like to read those clauses too? Okay, come on up, Lucy.
I'll just say too, thank you so much to Lucy for your work on this. And Lucy partnered with our staff at the Department of Public Health to develop this resolution, and I'm really grateful for your efforts.
Thank you so much. I will read the now therefore part. Now therefore the town of Amherst proclaims June 2026 as Migraine Headache Awareness Month in Amherst, Massachusetts, and encourages all citizens, healthcare professionals, and policymakers to support awareness, research, and improved access to care for headache diseases. Thank you.
Thank you so much for sponsoring this, Lucy. Presentations and discussions is our next item, and as announced earlier tonight, we are taking item 7A, Water and Sewer Revenues and Expenditures Charter Section 2.8C, Request for Information, together with item 8A, Action Items on Fiscal Year 2027 Budget, Capital Inventory, and Capital Improvement Plan, and item 8B, Proposed Fiscal Year 2027 Water and Sewer Rates and Amendments to Water and Sewer Rates. They're all going to be done together, and questions can be together. The staff wanted one presentation, so that is why we are doing this. So we are moving on to those items. Paul.
Thank you. Finance Director Sean Mangano is going to join us. And you have a memo in your packet for the counselor request for information, but we will also cover that information in this presentation. And if you have additional questions, we can certainly follow up on those. So thank you for your time. Tonight, I'm proud to present you with the town manager's budget for FY27. It's a budget that is balanced, but has required the town library and schools to work with its staff to bring the budget in within the budget guidelines established by the town council. The town remains on sound financial footing because we're careful in our budgeting and emphasize disciplined fiscal management. We face growing inflationary pressures not seen in years, including increasing wages in a competitive job market, rising healthcare costs, and higher energy costs. The budget is built on the solid foundation of fiscal integrity that has been the hallmark of the town's finances for decades. This budget adheres to those values of prudent planning, conservative estimating, although less conservative this year at the direction of the council, meeting financial obligations first, and making decisions with an eye towards the future. Next slide. So these values are concepts, but they're placed into action by people. First and foremost, I want to thank and recognize the hard work of Finance Director Sean Mangano. He makes all of our lives much easier. His incredible grasp of every aspect of the budget, along with his creative problem solving and welcoming disposition, has set the stage for the town council's work on the budget and open conversation. Many other staff have contributed, including Dave Zomack, the assistant town manager, Athena O'Keefe, clerk of the council, and Samantha Giffen, our communications manager, especially in producing this budget and this presentation. What we present tonight was months in the making, and I want to thank them all for leading the town's budget development process. I also want to thank our colleagues at the library, in the schools. Director Sharon Sherry is a no-nonsense leader who has shouldered an inordinate amount of work leading the library over the years, especially in a remote location. Superintendent of Schools Dr. Z. Herman and District Finance Director Shannon Bernacchia worked with their principals and other school leaders to present a budget that meets the town council's guidelines. This work was not easy, but they worked at it collaboratively with the professional educators in the school district. They are the ones who are closest to the school department's operations, and I trust their work. We also appreciate the communication and cooperation they have shown throughout this process. Next. The development of the budget began with the presentation of financial indicators in November of 2025. The town council, with that information, established budget policy guidelines in December and subsequently voted additional recommendations. This budget responds to all of those council actions, including the performance goals voted by the town council for the town manager earlier this year. Tonight, we'll provide an overview of the budget, review the budget calendar, including how members of the, you can go to the next slide, I think. Yeah, so tonight we'll provide an overview of the budget, summarize the capital improvement program, talk a little bit about the next few years, and then with the president's permission, we'll conclude with a presentation on water and sewer rates. It's a lot of material that we have to present to you tonight, so I appreciate your patience. But there'll be ample time over the next 4 to 6 weeks to learn more and ask us questions and ask department heads questions and understand the budget in more detail before you have to make your decision. Okay. So the total budget for the FY27 is just over $107 million. This budget is balanced, and I just should note that it's a budget that's balanced without the need of an override, unlike what you're seeing in many other communities around near us. The budget reflects and supports important community values like education, equity, and sustainability. It is in step with the goals and guidelines established by the town council. It prioritizes investments in public schools, public works, and public safety. And we would always welcome additional funds if they were available to meet all the needs and all the requests from every one of our departments. That doesn't need to be said, but we really do welcome additional funds, especially from new growth, which one of the public commenters mentioned earlier today. The budget aligns, as I said many times, with the town council budget policy guidelines, and to the extent feasible, given the town's financial constraints, supports the council's policy goals. The town's responsibility is to be the fiscal stewards for the town. Taxpayers trust that you'll make wise, responsible decisions, not just in this budget, but in future years to ensure the town can continue to make the investment that it needs to remain a first-class community. I'm going to turn it over to Sean to continue the next slide.
Right, thank you. So this slide shows how the budget is allocated on the expenditure side. The pie chart on the left breaks it down into the major categories. The largest category, 47% for education. The next largest category, 12% for public safety. This chart compared to last year looks pretty similar in terms of how the budget pie is divvied up. The small change between now and last year, or between FY27 and 26, is that the capital piece went up 1% and the state assessment piece went down 1%. Otherwise, the rest of the slices are about the same. On the right, we have the sort of more detailed breakdown of the expenditure budget. So for the operating budgets, the municipal budget, the elementary schools, regional schools, and the library, the overall increase is 4.1%. As the town manager mentioned, we started with a 3.5% increase in the budget guidelines. When state aid came in and state assessments came in a little more favorably for us, we came back and requested to raise it up to 3.85%. Ironically, not many of those budgets are at 3.85%, which is not usually the case, but I'll explain why they're a little bit different. So 3.85% was the guidance to all 4 of these departments. On the municipal side, the reason why it's higher is because additional guidance from the council asked us to look at fire and EMS staffing and to come up with a plan over multiple years to improve staffing levels. So there's an additional $200,000 that comes from the ambulance fund, which is specifically to support fire and EMT services, or primarily EMT services, that is added on top of the 3.85%. So that's the difference for the municipal budget at the top. The next one is the elementary schools, which has the double asterisk. So again, 3.85%, that was applied to the base appropriation for FY26. You may remember there was a one-time additional appropriation from free cash, but what's being proposed is that one-time, this is consistent with the council's budget guidelines, is that one-time funding has been rolled into the base. And then we also took excess funding from the regional assessment. As the regional school committee voted a number that came in below the town's guidelines, we took that excess funding and put that into the elementary schools as well. So there's about an extra $339,000 on top of the 3.85% that has been factored into the base for FY27. The regional schools are at a 3.5% increase, and that's because that's what the regional school committee voted. And then the library, they're the only one that came in right on guidance. Outside of the operating budgets, capital is going up 6.84%, and that's because in FY26, The council voted, I think it's 10.25% for capital for FY27. We've raised that back to 10.5% of the tax levy for capital. And that's consistent with our long-term planning around the 4 building projects and other capital needs. The retirement assessment came in about flat, although I want to just stress that that's not expected to continue year after year. When we look at the retirement system and what they project our assessments to grow each year, it's closer to 4%, but it changes year to year based on how big we are compared to other members of the system. So this year and last year were good years. We can't always count on that being this low every year. And then assessments, the final category, we saw a reduction, and this was a really unusual, I haven't seen this before. Our transit assessment for PVTA dropped by about 25%, a pretty significant reduction. We inquired with them why that is, and we were told that similar to the retirement system, other members of PVTA have added routes, and Amherst has become a smaller piece of the pie for them. And as a result, our assessment has gone down. Most of this assessment gets reimbursed by 5 colleges and by UMass. There's a lag to it, and I'll point that out later on in the presentation. So it's sort of a positive event for this year, but most of that savings will eventually go back to UMass because their reimbursement is based on our assessment. But that'll happen in FY28. Next slide. Some of the highlights of our budget. So we have proposed to add 2 fire EMT positions. This is comprised of unfreezing one from last year, or restoring a frozen position from last year, and proposing 1 new position. So increase of 2 total. And we have also put together a multi-year plan to improve staffing that we'll talk about in like 24 slides, sorry. On the public works side, the general fund budget that's concentrated on public works is growing 7.9% relative to the 4.5 overall that the town operating budget's going up. So we've definitely prioritized funding into public works, funds to support the most recent collective bargaining agreement proposal, and additional funds to supplement operating budgets. You may recall we talked about operating budgets have been flat throughout this period of inflation. It's affected the ability of workers to do their jobs. We can't fix that for all departments in 1 year, but we can start to fix it over time. And this year we prioritize public works as being one of the departments most impacted by inflation. The elementary schools base appropriation is going up 5.1%. This includes the extra $339,000 that I described before, and it does reflect the consolidation savings from the superintendent's budget proposal. So when the new school was approved and we were going from 3 buildings down to 2, there were savings, efficiency savings, utility staffing from going down a building, and those are reflected in this proposal. And then road sidewalk improvements, a total of $2.38 million. This includes Chapter 90 funds. There's also a multi-year plan to improve road conditions that we presented to the council. We're going to give you an update later on because there's already been some changes to the first year based on what the council approved, what's in JCPC. So we'll give you an update on that. But the good news is the first year of this 5-year plan is funded. We're going to have a $5 million bid going out for road improvements in the next few weeks. And then we just have to stick to that plan for the next 4 years. And then we also have a second asphalt hot box, which seems like a small thing, but it essentially doubles our capacity to fill potholes. Right now we have 1 that goes out with the crew when they fill potholes. This will give us 2. Next slide. In recreation, we are solidifying some programs that were really created last year, but the funding wasn't sort of solidified in the operating budget. The first one is the aquatics program director, which has helped develop some of our swim programs. We're finalizing basically 1/3 of that position's budget is funded out of the general fund. The other 2/3 is coming out of the swim revolving fund. And then the other one is the morning movement program. Was kind of relying upon savings or unspent funds in other areas of recreation. Now it has its own line item dedicated to morning movement so that it can continue into the future. Capital allocation is set at 10.5%, which includes $200,000 for sustainability initiatives. It does reflect the 4 building project plan, and Joint Capital Planning Committee was, as usual, did a really great job this year. One of the things they emphasized was limiting new debt. And so this plan proposes no new debt as we prepare for the DPW and other capital needs in the future. There's no new debt requests as part of this plan this year. In planning, this is a capital item, planning support. We've added $200,000 for economic development and zoning, and also support of site planning for Wildwood, Hampshire College. This is the one deviation from the plan that the Joint Capital Planning Committee approved. When they saw this, there was actually two separate projects, 100,000 for one, 100,000 for the other. But at that time, the Hampshire College news hadn't come out yet. So to maximize flexibility and to use these funds where they're needed, the town managers basically combined the two and broadened what it can be used for. But this is capital, and it's a one-time capital request. And then lastly, in the enterprise fund, we're proposing one new operator position in the water enterprise fund and one new operator position in the sewer fund. On the water side, we've got the Centennial Water Treatment Plant opening back up. We've heard about quality of life issues and staffing. And same thing on the sewer side. We've worked with the superintendent around best practices and guidance. And so this may not be the end of staffing additions for those two funds, but we wanted to start it this year and then have a further discussion about what next year looks like in the year after that. And then the enterprise fund proposal also includes $400,000 to replace the Atkins water treatment facility roof. FY27 is a really exciting year. A lot of these things were started decades ago or a decade ago. Didn't know we'd see these all come to fruition, but many of them are. First is the Centennial Water Treatment Plant that it's done now. It's just basically needs to be hooked up and turned on fully. So that should be coming up in FY27 or sooner. The new track and field, it's done. Just need to make sure the grass is strong before people start running on it. The track is done. So again, summer, fall 2026, we hope that's fully operational. The Amethyst Brook Elementary School will open for next school year. The downtown bathroom at Kendrick Park, that's like parking signage. Like I never thought that'd get done, but that's going to open up in June of 2026, maybe early July. Jones Library is on track to reopen in the spring of 2027. So by the end of FY27, we could have 2 of the 4 capital projects that we've been talking about for so long complete. We are moving full speed ahead on the Public Works facility. We have an RFP out there right now. In the next month or so, we'll be interviewing designers. And once we get a designer on board, that process will really take off. The Wildwood repurposing effort, and then with the council's action to approve the CPA funding for War Memorial, we're in the ballpark of the funding we need to then move that project, get that project started. So a lot of work that has led to this and a lot that's going to be completed next year. On the challenges side, I'm going to really just focus on the top one because it sort of influences all the other ones. And this is what the town managers just said and what you heard during public comment. And our biggest struggle is that our expenses are outpacing our revenues. I think it's accelerated. It's always been the case for a while, but it's accelerated with the inflation we've seen the last few years. But every year we look at how much our revenues grow, how much our expenditures grow. And if there's a difference, it means we're going to have a gap. And the gap is not closing year after year. So we need to come together. I know there is a fiscal stability group, I think, that's working on the schools. I think for FY27, we really need to prioritize that and work together, schools and town and library, really all of us on this issue. It's going to probably not be solved just with revenue. It's going to probably require a revenue and an expense solution, but the more we can do on the revenue growth side, the easier it'll be having this budget discussion next year. So I think you'll hear that theme recur throughout this budget presentation, that revenue growth is really critical to do all the things that we've heard tonight. Next slide. On the revenue side, this breaks down where the revenues come for our budget. So the 4 major categories that are in the pie chart are property taxes, local receipts, state aid, and other financing sources. Similar to expenses, there's been one little tweak in this chart compared to last year because we've been less conservative on local receipts. That's grown from 7% of our budget to 8% of our budget, and property taxes dropped from 70 to 69. But the other 2 categories stayed the same. Property taxes and state aid in terms of growth are pretty stable. Local receipts, as we mentioned, we're projecting an increase of 9.4%. Last year was another increase near 9%. So we have continued a trend of being less conservative in that particular area. One caution I want to state here is that our state aid, and you'll see it on the next slide, is based on the governor's budget proposal. which called for a 2.5% increase in unrestricted general government aid, which is the major state aid to the town. The House budget only called for about a 0.7% or 0.9% increase. So we are continuing to build our budget off the governor's budget as we have in the past, but there is a risk that something lower gets approved, and that would put more stress on our revenue budget. I'm hearing the Senate wants to do more, and sometimes that's just how it goes, right? One goes low, one goes high, and the end in the middle. But just know that this is the state aid projections. It's not a final budget, so they could change. Next slide. So this slide breaks down our revenues for what we're projecting for FY27. Again, at the top, I will emphasize the new growth line. So some of it's being cut off, but if you look at the new growth for FY24, it was about $1 million. For FY25, it was 1.2. And then in FY26, it dropped down to under 400,000. It's the first time I can remember that we missed our new growth budget. We usually budget about 650,000. So 1 year on its own is a blip. If it happens again, I think that's a really concerning trend, because we've had a decade or more of really substantial, strong new growth. We need more, obviously, based on what we've heard, but we have had a really strong run of new growth. If we keep seeing numbers that low, that's going to really impact what the town can afford to do. It directly impacts how much new revenue we get each year and the base for our property taxes. So we have reduced the estimate for new growth for FY27 based on what we've seen in FY26 and what we know about the projects that are out there in the pipeline. And we just need to see what we can do to encourage more growth.
Sean, do you want to talk about the Olympia Drive fire and the impact on those two buildings?
Yeah, so the building that was being built, if it stayed on track, would have contributed to new growth for FY27. Now the timing is unclear. So if that building is ultimately built, that will eventually hit our new growth. But that definitely also led us to reconsider our estimates, the timing around not the building that already existed, but the building under construction and when that will come onto the tax rolls.
And just to give a context, a range of what does that number look like? So you're going to be looking very closely at the increases, and we're talking, the requests, hundreds of thousands of dollars. What does one building look like?
Yeah, one new building can add $300,000 to $500,000 to the tax rolls, depending on the size, right? So one development can, on its own, can make a really substantial impact to our tax rolls. Next is our local receipts section. So just again, pointing out the 9.4% increase there. In state aid overall, we're projecting a 2.7% increase. And then the other financing sources, the ambulance fund number reflects the multi-year plan to improve fire and EMT staffing, and we'll show you what that looks like going out more years. So in that number, we're actually increasing the draw from the ambulance fund by $200,000 to support the operating budget. It's a decrease though compared to FY26 because in FY26 we purchased an ambulance. We're not proposing to purchase an ambulance in FY27 based on our schedule. So we're increasing the operating, but the overall is going down because there's no ambulance purchase for FY27. And that's just according to our vehicle replacement schedule. And then there are some miscellaneous funds, and I'll just quickly explain what's included there. So the $450,000 of miscellaneous, there's $275,000 of capital that was closed out from old projects. And JCPC helped with that process. And that money is going directly into roads. There's another $100,000 of transportation network company funds that have been built up over a few years. It's related to Uber and Lyft and the tax they essentially pay that comes back to us. It can only be used on work near where Uber and Lyft activity happens, but it can be used to support infrastructure improvements in those areas. And that's 100,000 of that amount. And then the other 75,000 is from Comcast, and that helps pay for the municipal fiber debt that we're still paying on. Next slide. On the expense side, again, you'll see the overall operating budget increase is 4.1% and the different amounts for each of the 4 operating budgets. In capital, you can see the breakdown of what is our debt exclusion, what is CPA funded debt, what the assessment is from the region. Again, we get a bill from the region every year for their debt, and then what's left over for our debt service and what we project going forward. And the key number here, I'll point it out actually on the next slide, is the cash capital number and what that looks like going forward. The retirement section again below, you'll see we have a very modest increase in our retirement assessment, which was helpful to this year's budget process. And then down in unappropriated uses, the state assessment, you'll see that dropping 100,000. That's where that transit assessment is and where that's going down quite a bit. That's offset partially by increases in charter tuition and school choice tuition. So it's not a complete drop. Next slide. So when we do the outlook on revenues, and I agree with the public commenter that outlooks are, they're based on projections and assumptions, and right now things are changing very rapidly. So when you go into the out years, there's less and less confidence in that those numbers are going to be realized, and there could be legislative changes that impact them. But I still think it's a worthwhile process to go through to see what does it look like and where are we at, and can we make any decisions now to help lessen the impact of the future if there's going to be a structural deficit. So here on the property tax side, you can see we are increasing our new growth estimate back to 650. But if we want to take care of the deficits that you'll see on the next slide, that number has to grow quite a bit. In local receipts, we have a range of different assumptions for each of these categories around how much we anticipate they'll increase. The one I want to point out is in special assessments. You'll see the drop from FY27 to FY28 of 273,000 next to special assessments. That's that reimbursement from UMass that I mentioned. The transit assessment goes down in FY27, and then we realize the reduction in the reimbursement from UMass the following year. So I just want to highlight that so it's not a surprise to folks when we do the FY28 budget. In state aid, we use just a pretty conservative estimate of what it's going to grow. And then again, in other financing sources, the ambulance fund, we've matched that up with our multi-year staffing plan. So some years it fluctuates more wildly than others because there might be an ambulance that's being proposed as being replaced that year. And then the next year we don't have a replacement. It's basically every other year we replace an ambulance. But you can see the overall increases in the budget at the bottom for the revenue side. If you go to the next slide. So more importantly is this chart. What we've modeled here in the operating budgets are 2.75% increases in operating budgets. And then in capital, we've kept it at 10.5%. Retirement, again, I use a 4% estimate for increases. But the important piece is that even at a 2.75% increase in operating, we still see gaps of about 383,000 growing year after year. And I think what we've learned this year is we have a 3.85% operating budget increase, and it's still not enough to do everything that the town wants to do. So at a 2.75% increase, it's going to be even worse, right? So if we want to do more than 2.75%, we need to figure out where the revenues are going to come from to support that. Or we need to make other adjustments on the expenditure side. So that's really, again, I agree, these projections, they're only worth so much, but I think the key here is that a 2.75% increase is going to turn into a very difficult budget year for FY28 if that's where we land. Next slide. So on the calendar, we start tomorrow with Finance Committee and at 1 p.m. with the review of the budget. On May 11th is the public hearing at 6:30, sound right? On the budget, and that's a Finance Committee meeting, but this one's in the evening. And again, the Finance Committee will meet every Tuesday and Thursday pretty much for the entire month of May. On Tuesdays, they're meeting at 1 p.m. and on Thursdays, they're meeting at 3 p.m., except they might move it to 3:30 after the first week. But it'll be on the calendar. And on June 1st, we have the Town Council Public Forum on the Capital Improvement Program. And if we stay on track, the council would vote sometime around June 15th. And you can see how to review the budget and contact the town council and the town manager. Next slide. I will quickly go through the Capital Improvement Program. So this chart and the table on the left shows the total outflows of expenses from our Capital Improvement Program. It includes Chapter 90 funding. It also includes debt payments. So all of that is kind of rolled into this pie chart, and that was based on feedback from the Joint Capital Planning Committee this year to structure it that way. And what you'll see is the schools are the largest slice, and that's because of the Amethyst Brook Elementary School debt. We're starting to pay that through the debt exclusion. The next largest slice is Public Works, and that's because all the road funding is there, and that's the largest sort of individual project we have each year. And then library is third largest, and that's because the Jones Library debt is starting to be repaid. So that's where most of our capital money goes, to building projects and roads. Next slide. So these are some of the highlights of the capital plan. I won't go through each of them individually, but this gives you just some of the highlights. And then the plan itself, you can see all the specific projects with a write-up of each project to learn more about each one. Next slide. So we use that plan to guide our decisions. Each year we start by looking at the following year and what projects were proposed and rolling those forward. And then we add new projects to the out years. And department heads know we don't like to see new projects go on unless they're an emergency, because it really kind of messes up what we've been trying to balance over the years. Another guiding principle is to limit our debt, as I mentioned. So we're going to have some debt when you look at our 5-year plan. There's some projects, particularly at Crocker Farm Elementary School, the roof, HVAC, windows and doors, that likely the cost will necessitate debt. But we're also looking to partner with MSBA on some of those projects and reduce the cost. But outside of that, we're really trying to limit any new debt in this plan. We want to stick to the 10.5% for capital, because when you'll see in a second, or actually in a few slides, you'll see that even at 10.5% and the projects that are on the plan, we still have deficits in terms of what we can afford. The resources are not enough to cover all the needs when we factor in the debt for our building projects. And so going any lower than 10.5% will only make that issue worse. Next slide. So the next section is really around a variety of plans that are hopefully responsive to what we've heard from the council. It's been helpful that the council's been so direct in terms of what it would like to see. And so we want to just kind of review these plans and how they align with the budget. Next slide. So the first one is road improvements. The council asked for a multi-year plan to invest in our roads and to try to improve their quality. This plan is consistent with what you saw several weeks ago. The only change is in the FY27 column. You'll see the free cash appropriation. We dropped down to 2.7 because that's ultimately what the council appropriated for roads. And the 5-year plan number, which is from the capital improvement program, is an increase to $1,089,000. So again, the good news with this plan is our first year is funded, and we're getting ready to go out to bid. And you can see we do have work to do in the out years. And some of this planning is to help provide a framing for when we do have free cash every year. What do we do with that free cash? This plan assumes at least $2 million of free cash is going to help supplement this plan and do more roads than what we otherwise could do. But even with that $2 million each year going from free cash into roads, we still have more work to do over the four out years. Next slide. This slide shows you the 4 building projects. It's the summary from the capital improvement program, and it's blocked by the caption, but you'd see a balanced FY27. There you go, perfect. And then some years that are not balanced. And that's what I mean when I say if we go any lower than 10.5% for capital, those deficit years only get worse. And another piece to really be mindful here is where it says new projects. So the amount, what's in there for new projects is what's on our plan in terms of what's been requested from department heads. But we're not going to be able to do all that because you can see we have deficits in those years. So we'll have to reduce those project requests by whatever that amount is on the bottom row. So when we planned for these 4 building projects, we knew there would be years where capital would start to get tight and there would start to be less funding for other things. And we're starting to get up to that point now that we have 2 of the projects funded with debt coming online and 1 hopefully in the next few years. That's where we're at. And then the other thing on this is, so again, we have 2 projects that we anticipate will be completed within the next year or so. Public Works, as we talked about earlier, is kicking off. We project if that goes smoothly and there's no hiccups, it could open sometime around 2029, 2030, if we move expeditiously forward. And then the last one, the fire station, is the one where there's we don't have the ability to finance it, as you can see right now. So there's no financing in this plan for the fire station. The plan for the fire station is to build up our reserve enough so that we can fund it without taking on new debt, or get pretty close to funding it without taking on new debt, maybe get it so it's a immaterial amount. Right now, we have $13 million in a capital stabilization fund that we created specifically for that purpose. There's another $4 to $5 million that we anticipate coming back from the Amethyst Brook Elementary School project from the investment tax credit, assuming, again, nothing in Washington changes that, and rebates. That could also go into that capital stabilization fund, and that gets us to 18 or 19 million. And then we still have about 10 or 12 million to go. So we're not there yet, but we're also not that far away. So I think, again, the framing for when we have free cash and we think about the plans that we have in place, it's roads and it's the fire station based on, what we've heard from the council. Next slide. I swear this is the last chart. No, there's one more. I'm sorry. So this is a new one. You haven't seen this before. This is a plan to improve staffing for fire and EMT services. And what you see here is the funding coming in from our ambulance revenues, what we took out in those years to support the operating budget, what we took out in those years are what we're projecting to take out for capital, and then what's remaining. And so from FY23, we were bringing in more than we were using. That's dwindled through FY26, where we're basically using roughly what we're bringing in. And what we're proposing is to add the two positions for FY27, 3 positions for FY28, and 2 positions for FY29. And what that would do would be to an increase of 7 positions, but one of those was a frozen position. So it's really an increase of 6 in terms of new positions. And what that would do is allow the fire department to fully staff 3 ambulances and 1 fire truck at all times, which was in consultation with the fire chief. One of the goals in terms of our staffing was to have 3 ambulances and 1 fire truck fully staffed. Now, in FY29, we would reassess what call volumes look like, what staffing has been like, and then determine is that good, or do we need to, again, maybe there's additional positions needed at that time. But this would be a 3-year plan to get to that level of staffing that I just mentioned. And the way we would pay for it would be to use the ambulance fund. So this would not create additional pressure on the other operating budgets. The goal would be to fund this through existing ambulance funds and through rate increases. We use a company named Comstar to do our billing for ambulances, and they have a lot of clients throughout the state. So they look at our rates, they look at other communities' rates. Our fire department looks at local rates all the time. And so we did a relatively large increase this year. We would increase rates 5 to 10% each of the next couple of years, our billing rates for ambulance runs to help fund this. And this would not box out capital. We still need to make sure that we have enough funding each year to replace an ambulance every other year, and then some of the other smaller capital items that the fire department needs. And then the last one in this section, we are looking for new ways to grow revenue. We do every year. One suggestion or proposal this year is around building permits for new construction of commercial, multifamily, and mixed-use developments. This table gives you a hypothetical scenario for a building that's 100,000 square feet and costs $26.9 million. And in Amherst, based on our current fee structure for that type of building, we would have a building permit fee of $35,609. In these other communities, you can see the methods they use and what that same building would generate in revenue for those other communities. So the proposal that we're going to explore, and we wanted your feedback, not necessarily tonight, but throughout the process, is to move to the model that South Hadley and Hadley uses, which is $10 per thousand of estimated construction cost. And we think the method we have right now, it's disconnected from cost. So the amount that we're bringing in now would have been the amount we brought in 25 years ago if there was no changes in this structure. Where we know buildings cost more, they're more complicated, they're more technical in some ways. And so we think tying it to cost like these other communities makes sense. So it could generate significant new revenues, and we welcome your feedback as we go through the budget process. Next slide. All right, the final phase of this presentation, water and sewer rates. So this is the water chart that you're used to seeing. The proposed rate increase for FY27 is to go from $6.45 per 100 cubic foot to $6.75 per 100 cubic foot, which is a 4.65% increase. This reflects a reduction in usage from Hampshire College closing. They were a relatively large consumer of water, so we factored in lower consumption, which has a upward pressure on rates. This also factors in the addition of one new operator position and the debt related to the Centennial Water Treatment Facility and the replacement of the Atkins Water Treatment Facility roof. So a lot of capital is factored into this number. Next slide. There was a request for a more detailed breakdown of revenues and some history and forward looking. So this is some of the detail behind that slide that you usually get. This is our revenues for the water fund, and the top section are the non-rate revenue. So these are other types of revenues that the town receives. New connections, there's a fee, there's a lien component. We get interest on the money that's held by the enterprise funds and so on. So this gives you a breakdown of what we've received in the past and what we're projecting going forward. And then the rate revenue is at the bottom and the total revenue is at the very bottom. Next slide. Same thing on the expense side. This is a little bit more detail in terms of the expense projection. So personnel and operating, we model using a 5% increase in the out years. That's been increased in recently. It used to be lower, but with inflation and where things are going, we've increased that to 5%. Capital and debt is modeled based on our capital plan for the enterprise fund and our debt schedule. So those are actual numbers that we expect. And then the last line down there, general fund, those are indirect costs that the enterprise fund reimburses. It's a revenue to the general fund, and that's usually a 3% increase. So this is the detail behind the expenses and the enterprise projection. Next slide. Similarly, on the sewer side, we're proposing increasing the rate from $6.95 per 100 cubic foot to $7.30 per 100 cubic foot, which is a 5.04% increase. This also reflects the usage reduction at Hampshire College. It also reflects a new operator position, and the gravity belt thickener debt is fully factored in. We do anticipate an uptick in capital requests and possibly debt in the sewer fund once we get the results of the wastewater study. So that study will give us what repairs need to be made, when they need to be made, how they need to be made, and costs associated with those. So that is not reflected in this plan yet because we don't have those results. Same thing on the sewer side. This is a breakdown of the revenues that support the sewer fund. Next slide. And then the expenses as well. And the last slide.
So thank you. That's a lot of information. So I appreciate your patience in like going through the 1,000 slides that we put together. Again, these are the basic, I'm not going to reiterate everything that we said, but I think the thing that's really current now is we're paying close attention to the budget process at the state. The state budget with support of our state senator, Joe Comerford, came in better than what the House had proposed. So we really need to be advocating at the state level for additional funds based on the Senate budget numbers, which is better than both the governor and the House numbers. And there was an announcement today or a press release today by the MMA to try to mobilize support for the Senate side of the ledger. I think our state rep is in line with that, but many of the other House of Representatives members are not. Also, it's a time to celebrate what we're doing. I mean, we hear a lot about the needs and things like that, but just think about it that, we really have a new school that we're about to open. We have a new track and field that we're ready to open. We have the Jones Library we're months away from that opening. The downtown restroom, which we've been talking about forever, the Portland Loo will be coming in. So we're doing a lot in the town, and it's very few. If you look around, there's only a handful of people who are making all this happen. So I just give credit to our town employees for pulling all these things together. And our focus really is to be able to provide the services that the townspeople want, that the council has established within the budget framework that we have. And I think, we've been really fortunate that we've been able to do this without operating budget overrides. Most communities around us have been doing operating budget overrides. We've been able to do it successfully without that. It doesn't mean we'll always be able to do it without it, but at this point, that's our mission. I think my approach is that we will try to live within the limits of Proposition 2.5 for the operating budgets, but then for the major capital projects, we may have to go to the voters for a debt exclusion, which is what the voters have approved. So I think if we come with a coherent plan along those lines, the voters will understand and will support it. But we also are hypersensitive to the tax pressures that people are feeling. The taxes on their homes are very high. And a lot of that is something we can't control because a third of our land is not paying taxes. And so we may have more conversation about that later on tonight as well. So thank you, Sean, for all the work.
Thank you, Sean and Paul. We have a lot on our agenda tonight, but we have time for a few questions. What I really urge the council is we've already referred all of the water sewer rates, budget, capital inventory, capital improvement plan to Finance Committee for consideration. I encourage all councilors to read the budget, send their questions to the finance chair, to Kathy over here, and she can incorporate them into the budget review process is going, but we do have a little bit of time for a few questions. So Councilor Ryan.
Thank you. Thank you again, Sean. Two quick questions and then a brief comment. Use of the ambulance funds to fund the positions in fire. Correct me if I'm wrong, and I may very well be, but ambulance fund is traditionally used to fund equipment needs in the fire department. Is that right? Or how's it usually used?
So it's always funded both. It's always provided some amount of operating budget support, which is essentially earmarked for the EMT portion of the fire budget, and it's been used for capital, but it has been used for both.
So when it's now going to be used to fund primarily positions?
It's going to continue to fund both. We're just
Really?
increasing the
rates,
amount that will support the operating budget, specifically by the amount that these two new positions will cost. So it's essentially a funding source for these two new positions.
Second, just briefly, if I may.
Yes.
Excited to hear that you funding two positions, one in water, one in sewer. Maybe not so much for you, but for the manager, but whomever. I think it's going to matter at what level, what grade those people are hired. If they're at the lowest grade, it's not maybe going to solve some of the issues that have been rising. So I hope that there's consideration given. It probably obviously would cost more, but it would help, I think, a great deal with some of the issues that have been there. Sure. If it's not a newbie, but it's someone who has some experience. Just a thought. And finally, I'm really excited about the Portland Loo. I can hardly wait. June, is that you're swearing June now?
Who gets to use it first? That's the question.
Thanks.
Thank you, Councilor Ryan. Councilor Cano Martin.
I just had some follow-up questions about the sewer and water rates portion. So my first question was, how do our water rates compare to surrounding communities? Like, I really appreciated the comparison that you showed with the permitting, and I was pretty shocked at how low our permitting costs were. So how do our water rates compare and how do our sewer rates compare? And then we had also, I think, been asking the question, could there be different rates depending on the volume of usage? Is that something that you have looked at that could provide more revenue?
Yeah, no, those are great questions. The first one in your packet, there should be a memo that has the comparison. I think it was sent out late Friday, but there's a comparison to the water and sewer based on different volumes of usage. So we're higher than we used to be. We used to be very low on this list in terms of we were below our comparison communities. Now we're closer to the middle, but we're still below sort of the average. It's a little difficult to compare exactly to other communities if you provide different types of services, right? So some of these communities are heavy septic well communities. Some of them are big systems like Springfield, right? And the bigger you are, sometimes you can have more economies of scale, sometimes you can't. So this, this is sort of like a guide for us, but it's, I think that's how we use it. And then the second question, which I should have mentioned during the presentation, is so the public works superintendent has a consultant who's working with us to develop some different options on rate structures for water and sewer. And one of the ones is based on different volume and size of user. I know the council wanted that maybe for this year, and apologize sort of with the transition, but our goal would be to have, we have this consultant working on it now, and the goal would be to have those options for the next round of rate discussion, so for FY28.
Pam.
Thanks. There was a number as part of our income, which is $845,000 as pilot. Can somebody describe what that pilot covers?
Right, so that pilot
What are they
is,
paying us for?
So
What
that,
are we getting?
yeah, so it's not a pilot in the way you might think of a pilot. It's our enterprise fund. So, and this is a long practice, the value and the property that our enterprise funds was costed out at one point, and ever since that time, the enterprise funds, water, sewer, even parking, there's a pilot payment that comes back to the general fund as a revenue for the property they own.
So we're essentially paying ourselves
Essentially paying ourselves
from those enterprise.
from the enterprise funds, yeah,
Oh,
for the
different.
property, because that property would otherwise theoretically be taxable.
Any other questions? Counselor Cano Martin, is your hand still up? Okay.
And we'll get
Pam. We will get the slideshow, yes.
It's
Seeing-
posted now. Yeah.
Thank you, Athena. Seeing no other questions, we are going to take our break. It is 8:12. We will come back at 8:17.
Sean, thank you.
Oh, thank you.
That was the most I've ever understood a budget.
Really? I don't know. Felt like. I don't know. Thank you. That's why I'm sure he's done enough.
We need to start regathering so we can continue with our meeting. Counselors. Counselor Churchill. I don't think he's hearing us. Kathy and Andy, we need to get started. Do we have Counselor Walker and Counselor Brevik back? Excellent, thank you. Okay, we are moving on to item 8C. 8C is the proposed Amherst Pelham Regional School Agreement Amendment. I want to welcome the Amherst Pelham Regional School Committee Chair, Sarah Feskenny, up to give us a little information on this amendment, and then there will be a motion made to refer. Hi, welcome.
Okay, so there is a motion that is before you.
Oh, can you just speak closer to that mic? That might need you closer.
How's that? Good?
I think that's better, yeah.
Okay. Which is, I'm sure you all have it, see whether the town will vote to amend the agreement establishing a regional school committee district comprising the towns of Amherst, Pelham, Leverett, and Shutesbury to revise paragraph G, section 6, apportionment and payment of costs incurred to the district as follows. The regional school committee is authorized if it so votes to execute lease or leases consistent with the powers and duties of the regional school committee as specified in MGL chapter 71, section 16, or otherwise act thereon. Which will bring the regional agreement more in line with the law.
Thank you. I'm going to ask my questions because I have two, but and then other counselors that might have some. Actually, let me make the motion first. The motion is to refer the proposed amendment to the Amherst Pelham Regional School Agreement to the Finance Committee with a recommendation and report to the council by June 1, 2026. Is there a second?
Jane seconds.
Thank you. My question, I actually have two questions. You sort of answered the first one, which is this motion is actually changing a clause that has two things that might interest Amherst, that the period of the lease cannot exceed $100 per room, and that it has to contain other provisions that the town of Amherst may agree upon. So was there discussion in the school committee about that particular parts of removing that? And is there any particular reason for removing that? And then the vote of the school committee, this is the one I'm more interested in. The vote of the school committee was actually different language. So could you speak to why the school committee, when it was in front of the school committee, had a more generic language and now it's got references? The vote of the school committee was, at least in front of the school committee, it was the regional school committee is authorized, if it so votes, to execute a lease or leases consistent with the general laws, period. And so, and then what's in front of us is slightly different. Do you know the reasons why it's slightly different?
This is the law that specifically talks to
Okay.
school committees.
Okay.
Their ability to do those things. Okay. And then
my next question was about the specifics as to why this one is particularly targeted and not any other section of the regional agreement. Why is this the only section that is being targeted for this?
Yep. So as you probably remember from previous iterations of having conversations with DESE regarding our regional agreement and amending things for 1 year and then 1 year, and then them telling us last year that they will never do that for us ever again, which I am taking a little bit of liberty with what they said. We're willing to agree to have this very small portion updated with the intent that we will have a broader, more in-depth look at the entire regional agreement. Our school committee, at our next school committee meeting, which is the 12th, I believe, it will be on the agenda to start having that conversation, to have a deeper conversation about the entire regional agreement. There are several things in there that need to be updated to bring it in line with current MGL.
Thank you. Are there other questions at this time? Lynn?
I'm assuming that this reason that we're going after this particular piece is because of the rental by for the middle school, for the new 6th grade. Is that what's brought this on? Okay. So, and what you're telling us is that you've had a pre-approval by DESE for this change only.
DESE won't give you a pre-approval.
Oh, right.
They
Exactly.
will give you some suggestions that they could possibly support what you are trying to do.
And was the language changed based on legal review?
Yes.
Thank you.
Kathy?
Since this is being referred to finance, so we'll be discussing it again on Thursday. The language of consistent with the law or MGL, what does that exactly mean in terms of what a rental agreement can have in it? And can we talk about that more on Thursday? So I'm just curious, clearly $100 per room per year was an amazingly cheap rate. But what does it mean in terms of consistent with? I mean, is there a practice of pricing out leases?
In MGL?
DESE world or the MGL world? Yeah.
I don't know.
So being consistent with something means there's something that out there that we could be consistent with.
I mean, this language is consistent with the law, which says that regional school committees are responsible for the leases in their regional building.
Okay.
Not a specific dollar amount.
Okay.
I have another question, which kind of goes to what you just said about looking at the rest of the agreement later. As you are aware, we changed our form of government in 2018, and we have been requesting that change for now 8 years, multiple times. And in fact, our manager sent the superintendent an email back in October of last year specifying what sections of the regional agreement would need modified. Is there a reason that this section came before updating the regional agreement to reference the town council and town manager.
My understanding is that that is part of the larger review that will happen. Because it's not just a small language tweak so that is part of what will happen with the larger review that will happen.
And do you have an estimate on how long the larger review might take and when we might see?
I do not.
Okay, thanks. Andy.
Do you have a sense of what the likely rental cost will be for the sixth grade academy?
I have not been
Assuming
part of
it
those
goes through?
conversations.
And what happens if it doesn't get approved? Do we just pay $100 per classroom?
That may be a question for finance committee.
I think that is not a question I am prepared to answer. I have not been part of the discussions about the actual lease agreement.
Paul.
I can address that. So there have been many negotiations with a representative from the regional school district committee, from the superintendent, the finance director, our finance director, me, and now more recently Amherst School Committee representative. So a lot of discussions about how much this would actually cost. So we're digging into the numbers. There's and I think one of the ways is to look at the actual cost of operating the number of square feet that the sixth grade will be occupying and tying the pricing to that. And so the school department has generated some numbers for us. We're looking at those numbers now. We hope to conclude that pretty quickly though.
Thank you. Kathy.
So this, again, we can come back to it on Thursday and you don't have to be on the hot seat here. But if you come up with a number, it has to go in the elementary school budget, but it also becomes a revenue to the regional school. And are people thinking of that two-way flow? You know, just in terms of it enhances the regional budget. It's what the purpose of it would be. So just trying to think that through so that we can have a discussion about it on Thursday, it would be useful. Because right now in the elementary school budget, if people go through the line item, it says rent and there's nothing there. You know, it's just, there's an absence rather than a number in the budget, in whichever budget we look at, that one doesn't exist. It would just be useful, Paul, because it interplays with the two budgets.
Lynn.
As you put together the larger look, will you be bringing in representatives from each of the 4 towns beyond the school committee?
I would think so, but we have not had the conversation. We will have the conversation on the 12th.
Because it does have to go back to each of the 4 towns, right?
Each of the towns, yes.
Yeah, thank you.
Yep. I believe that it's the regional school committee's responsibility to start the conversation and then bring it back to the 4 towns. So that conversation will start on the 12th.
Thank you for that. This question is actually not for you, Sarah Beth.
Excellent.
It's to head to finance. Could finance determine whether this lease provision has ever been used, particularly the current part of the lease provision that is referencing any such other provisions that the district and the town of Amherst acting Board of Selectmen may agree upon? So that's one question I would have is, have we actually used the current provision and do we know why or how or for what purposes? And then I had another one, which was if, it's a 2-part sort of, if the current provision stays in place, is that going to affect the leasing of the current lease negotiations of Amherst Brook for the middle school? As Paul just described, sort of those negotiations ongoing. Does this change need adopted in order for that to be successful or not? And as part of that, is there any time limit for voting on the change? You know, a lot of times we have time limits for debt and stuff. Is there an actual time limit within which all 4 towns must adopt it before it maybe becomes not adoptable or not changeable? Like, does it die at some point if we don't vote. I don't know whether that is, but that's a question for the finance committee to
Okay, so,
ask.
the first one, you'll have to do it again, but I'll pick it down. I know we are paying rent for the recreation department that's sitting there. So, and it's not $100 per room per year. So at some point, those provisions have been used, but Sean will be able to answer.
So for those that might not have been able to hear online, our finance director responded that that provision was interpreted differently for the recreation leases because it was not classroom space. But yeah, so I just had, for finance, I know Sarah Beth cannot answer those. Lynn.
So is this question on the warrants for each of the other towns?
Yes, it's already passed over it.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions on this one? Seeing none, we are going to move to a vote then to refer this proposed amendment to the Finance Committee. We start with Pam Rooney.
Yes.
Counselor Ryan.
Aye.
Kathy Shane.
Yes.
Jennifer Taub.
Yes.
Counselor Walker.
Yes.
Counselor Brevik.
Yes.
Counselor Cano Martin.
Yes.
Andy Churchill.
Yes.
Anna Devlin Gauthier.
Aye.
Lynn Griesemer.
Aye.
Mandy Jo Haneke is an aye. Counselor Lord.
Aye.
And Sam McLeod.
Aye.
That is unanimous. It is referred to finance. It will be taken up at finance this coming Thursday. Thank you so much for coming, Sarah Beth.
Problem. Fine.
Have a nice evening. Okay, we are moving on to the 8D Community Safety and Social Justice Committee Charter 2.8B Request for Information. Counselor Lord, would you like to make the motion that's in the motion sheet, or would you rather me make it and you second it? Do you have it up, in other words? Do you have it ready to read?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, why don't you make the motion? Please use your mic.
In accordance, I move to talk mushrooms. How do I make a motion?
You just say in accordance, you
Thank you.
started it correctly.
I started it correctly.
Yeah.
Don't doubt yourself, girl. In accordance with section 2.8B of the Amherst Town Charter, a representative of the CSSJC will appear before the town council in June 2026, preferably June 1st, to give information regarding progress on the CSWG recommendations and immigrant protection efforts.
Is there a second?
Second, Rooney.
Would you like to speak to the motion, Counselor Lord?
Yes, please. I'm not 100% sure that it fits exactly in this spot, but when I reached out to the President and Vice President requesting that CSSJC be seen before the council, this is the method that we're following. So I'm not sure that we're requesting information from the town manager as much as, yeah. So I just want to start by saying I affirm the work of CSSJC. Their efforts around CRESS and the Community Safety Working Group recommendations and protecting our residents reflect deep care and commitment to our community. I support hearing an update from them. The committee serves in an advisory role, and it could be an opportunity. It is an opportunity for us to listen and engage, and this work is deeply important for those most impacted, for all of us, but especially those most impacted by inequities in our community. As we spoke today about the racist letter, we're celebrating Jewish heritage through the Resolution Proclamation. We look to Pride next month, and we will have a conversation about ICE tonight. CSSJC is here for all of that and more. So I just hope you will vote to approve this. There might be an amendment to the next thing about a special meeting, so I'm just saying anytime in June. And it doesn't have to extend one of our already existing meetings. It could be on a special meeting if that is voted upon. Thank you. And if you have any questions, I'm here.
And I just wanted to clarify, the section that is mentioned in this motion is 2.8B. 2.8C references information from the town manager. 2.8B is I just wanted to clarify for everyone, is our authority under the charter to request a representative of any multiple member body to appear in front of us to get information from them or have a conversation from them. So that is the section of the charter that this references. Are there any questions? Yeah, Counselor Walker.
Yes, I just have a quick question because I didn't review this specific provision of the charter. We are requesting that a representative from the CSSJC be available. Does that mean that other members of the CSSJC cannot be available or cannot attend that meeting? Is it just one person from the committee?
So the charter references a representative. I don't think a decision, if this motion passes, a decision hasn't been made whether I would enforce the specific motion of and the charter of a representative or not. That is the motion in front of us. I think some of it might depend on Councillor Lord referenced an upcoming amendment to a motion previously adopted. Depending on how we do all that, it might look slightly different, depending on what a meeting might look like and all. But the charter itself is specific to a representative of a committee.
Okay, thank you.
Kathy.
Is there specific information you're hoping to get?
Councillor Lord?
They will be bringing us information. We're not requesting information. They are bringing information to the council that we could use for decisions and the like.
Do you have anything further? So the motion reads to give information regarding progress on the Community Safety Working Group recommendations and immigrant protection efforts. So that would be the scope of the conversation.
Okay, so they have information they can bring to us. Okay.
Lynn.
In the past, when CSSJC has come before the council, there's usually been a request for information from the town manager on the, November 14th, I can't come up with the year, motion that included 7 different items that came out of the report from the Community Safety Working Group. Is that what you're referring to here?
Yeah.
Okay. But you're not asking for the town manager to provide information. You're only asking, they're only going to present information.
Correct.
I'd like to speak a little further to that.
Sure.
I think it makes for a fuller conversation if both sides are presenting information. It allows the town manager to provide the council and the community with an update on the 7 items in that area, and it allows the CSSJC to provide their perspective on that as well. This does not include the issue of immigration. I'm very well aware of that. It just is pertaining to those original 7 items. So I don't, I'm not in a position to try to amend the motion. I do know that the manager does try to provide a periodic update in the town manager report on those 7 items as well. But I think for the purposes of the council, it would be useful if we get both information from the manager and from CSSJC.
May I comment?
Councilor Lord.
Absolutely, but we are also being completely understanding and considerate of budget season, not a lot of time, and that the manager has been asked for a lot of information. So he is absolutely welcome to bring information, but we do not want to put any undue burden on him at this time to produce that for June. So he's more than welcome. And then, of course, his reports are very thorough, but we don't want to put that, we're not asking for that additional burden on budget season.
Thank you. Kathy.
I think when I read it, you had a specific date in it, a June 1st date. And it's just, we have a reasonably full agenda. I mean, you would know more, Mandy, so I don't know whether that date is firm or whether we could have it in the next council meeting, if it's 2 weeks later.
So the motion itself says preferably June 1st. I have informed Counselor Lord that June 1st may not be available.
Okay, so that was my question.
Yeah.
It just, yeah, okay,
So,
thank you.
so Counselor Lord has been told it may or may not be, and then given presaging a motion that is under our amend something previously adopted under the 48-hour rule, there is a possibility that this might end up combined if that passes with a special meeting that is being requested to be, that motion to be amended too, so that it is more efficient to have everyone there for the same things. So it is possibly going to be June 1st, but it is probably more than likely not going to be June 1st, depending on other things that happen. Counselor Brevik.
Is there anything that we need to do now to keep that option open? So with this, is there anything we need to do with this motion to keep the option of a joint meeting serving both this purpose and the purpose we'll discuss with the motion I'll introduce later to address both of those items in the same? I know that there's decisions to be made about dates, but is there anything we need to do now to make sure that's an option?
I don't think so, because this motion itself just says preferably June 1st, so that is not a binding date. If it were a binding date, I would be recommending removal of the date and just mentioning a month, but since it's just a preference, not a binding, I don't think anything has to be changed in this motion to allow the flexibility for what was just discussed. Any other questions or comments before we move to a vote? Seeing none, we start with Counselor Ryan.
Aye.
Kathy Shane,
I'm going to abstain.
Jennifer Taub,
Yes.
Counselor Walker,
Yes.
Counselor Brevik,
Yes.
Counselor Cano Martin,
Yes.
Andy Churchill,
Yes.
Anna Devlin Gauthier,
Aye.
Lynn Griesemer,
Aye.
Mandy Jo Haneke is an aye. Counselor Lord,
Aye.
Sam McLeod,
Abstain.
and Pam Rooney.
Yes.
That is 11 in favor, 0 opposed, and 2 abstentions. The motion passes. We are moving on to, I'm going to keep it on here, but if the discussion goes long, I'm going to move to postpone the discussion to a later meeting, but we're moving on to item 8E. If we can keep this short, proposed acceptance of MGL Chapter 40, Section 71, School Bus Violation Detection Monitoring System. I'm going to make the motion, and the motion I am making is to refer. So the motion is to refer the proposed adoption of acceptance of MGL Chapter 40, Section 71, School Bus Violation Detection Monitoring System to the Town Services and Outreach Committee for a report and recommendation to the Town Council by June 15th, 2026. Is there a second?
Ryan, second.
George Ryan seconds it. I was the proponent or the sponsor of this. Last year, as the memo said, the state adopted legislation that allows for local acceptance of or requires local acceptance of a school bus monitoring law in order to give the option for towns or school districts to install monitoring systems to monitor vehicles that violate the stop sign while students are boarding or deboarding buses, and then to give tickets related to that. This is the second time I've proposed this be potentially adopted by the council. It failed referral in the last council. I am bringing it back, and I'm hoping that this council will consider and refer it to TSO for consideration as to whether it is something the council may want to accept as an MGL. That is not mandating use, and I want to be clear with that. The only role we in essence have in this is to accept the statute. It then goes to the school committee to allow discussion if they want to discuss. And obviously there would be presumably costs involved, and we might be involved in that if they want to pursue this option, but they cannot pursue the option unless we've accepted the statute. So that's the first part of it. So that is why. Is there any other conversation? Councilor Ryan?
I guess I would I mean, this is okay, but I would kind of prefer it came from the school committee rather than from us. And so I guess the question that I have is whether you've heard anything from anyone on the school committee about this, requesting that we take this action. We can still go ahead and approve this, I suppose, and we can talk about it at TSO. You did point out that it will have some financial, it could have some financial implications, either, well, obviously it would be on us ultimately, but it's not going to finance, it's going to TSO. So, has the school committee reached out to you and spoken to you at all about this?
No, I'll address the financing issues first. It has no financial implications at this time. Accepting a statute has nothing to do with finance, because it does nothing other than allow things to happen in the future. Multiple other votes would need to be taken. I have not actually reached out to the school committee per se. I've heard, as many of you have heard, from many parents. I'm a parent myself who has heard from my own child who's ridden buses, but many parents have many stories about vehicles violating the stop on buses regularly and dangerously. And so I see this more with the state allowing that as a item to potentially allow safer bus boarding and deboarding. We've heard from residents and all. The other thing I see is this is, and I said this last council term, we have a surveillance policy in town. I don't think this implicates the surveillance policy directly, but it is a big step for the town to say, yes, we are willing to allow sort of surveillance or monitoring systems that will generate their own tickets. And that's a big step to take in a town. That is a step I think that should be considered irrespective of whether it's on school buses or something else. I've read recently that the state is considering allowing red light cameras on local acceptance completely, as other states have. And this is sort of, I think, needs to be seen in that context. Is this something that us as a town would want to potentially allow? Which to me personally is a separate necessarily decision than whether the school committee would implement it itself. So that's one of the reasons I haven't necessarily gone directly to them first, because I think it's a separate sort of decision. Councilor Brevik.
So I can go back and look for minutes from the last time that this was discussed, but I'm just wondering if, and I know we don't have a lot of time, but if there's like a short answer to what happened last time that this came before the council and why it was not moved forward. If that's too long of an answer, that's fine. But was it the surveillance concerns, or was there something that really hung people up?
My memory was there were a few counselors that didn't see the need. And that won the day in the motion to refer. That's my memory. It was over a year ago. So I could be slightly misremembering the conversation. Jennifer.
I don't remember it coming up, but I certainly support it, and if it can be implemented and be effective, so I would support the referral. I think we had a conversation. The problem is it's a moving violation, so the ticket goes to the license plate, and the person to whom the car is registered could say they weren't driving it. So that's the problem with the red light monitoring as well. But we could take that. That's probably a later concern. I would support this.
Thank you. Sam.
Thank you, Mandy. Your comment about grander surveillance got me thinking. Are you indicating that this motion, or even if the school committee passes it, that it opens up Amherst to greater surveillance by virtue of us accepting some form of state law? I thought I heard that inference from what you said.
Let me correct that. And Jennifer's comment made me remember that a lot of the conversation a year ago was about red light cameras and who gets the ticket if this happens. That is rejogging my memory, and some concerns about sort of the logistics of it. No, so what I would say is we have a surveillance technology policy that requires the council to approve any surveillance plan if surveillance technology under the definition of the bylaw is used. I do not believe this would fit that. I don't think this qualifies as surveillance technology under the definition of the bylaw. So the bylaw, I do not believe applies. This was the first time the state adopted the ability to potentially use cameras to ticket cars, I guess would be the best way to say it, to give tickets for traffic violations to license plates. They are currently, there's a bill in the State House currently to expand that, probably with a different statute, moving to red light cameras. That's not what this one is doing. This is solely focused and only allows for on buses outside looking for cars that drive through those stop signs when the buses are stopped. So it is not, in and of itself, acceptance of it is not accepting anything else. In fact, no other sort of monitoring system for moving violations is allowed in the state at this point at all.
Thank you. None of us obviously want drivers, school buses. We've seen accidents that occur. And, but my question relates to is this the state enforcing, and all aspects of this are not in the control of the town? It's just an automatic, similar to getting a ticket on a toll road?
No, it would be all through the town. It is a town, if the town adopts it, accepts the statute, and the school district and the police department implement it, the town would, it would be a ticket issued by the town, not something like an Easy Pass.
And I guess the last question affiliated with that is, are the tickets mandatory, or is there discretion among
That
town?
I don't know the statute well enough. You'd have to read the statute.
The motion says enforce. And so that's,
I think they are automatically generated based on license plate, but again, this is allowing the town to consider, the school district to consider installing them.
I understand
So
that.
those conversations
at the
on,
end.
on physical operation would happen later.
I'm looking at the end game of it. It seems like a good idea. I just, does it not enable any exceptions if there's something that, gets generated? That's what I'm getting at.
That is, I'd have
Anytime
to
I see
reread the
automatic
statute.
enforcement of some form of surveillance, I see it going forward. But this is a unique area, of course.
Athena.
And just a point of information, the town does have a surveillance use bylaw. And so if the school committee were to pursue it, they would have to propose this for the council to approve in accordance with the surveillance use bylaw. There's a policy, and they would have to explain how the surveillance technology is used and what's stored and so on. And that would be subject to council approval. So you would have another opportunity to look at this before it were implemented.
Thank you.
Councilor Kendall Martin.
Yeah, I would just be curious about what type of technology these bus cameras use. I know there's been a lot of concern about surveillance cameras that towns use. I think it's called a flock camera, that data has been shared with federal immigration enforcement. So I just want to make sure that whatever company operates this technology would not be sharing that data with, the federal government. So I feel like we could refer that, and that would give us the opportunity to find that out. So I wouldn't be against referring it. I don't know if I would be in favor of implementing it.
Yeah, so the type of use of camera, as Athena said, is if it's deemed surveillance under the definition of the bylaw, would have to come back to us, and we'd know the technology and all of that and how it would be used and stored, and we'd be able to control that. This isn't authorizing any specific system. It's not even saying we're going to install it. We're saying the school committee could consider it at this time, and the funding would have to come back too anyway, if it needed funding. Councilor Ryan.
So I think I'm going to recommend that we not refer this, simply because I'm thinking as chair of TSO, we can certainly take a look at the bylaw and see whether this is an issue with this idea of surveillance camera on a bus. I don't think it is, but it sounds like really shouldn't be doing any of this unless the school committee comes to us and says, we're getting a lot of complaints from parents and bus drivers, and it's not that we don't care, but I think it should come from them. And then this is what we would do. We would take a look at surveillance bylaw, make sure it fits that. We'd have to deal with the funding of that. None of this is relevant right now. The only relevance is us passing this, say it could be possibly done someday. So perhaps this is one of the reasons I voted against it the last time was, and I can't remember, was that let's have this come from the school committee and from the school community and from the bus drivers and da, 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 da. And then they say to us, this is a really big issue and we want you to do something about it. That's kind of my feeling. So if it does come to TSO, I'm really asking my colleagues, what do you want us to do? We can't deal with funding. There's no school committee input, and I'm not going to the school committee to ask. We could look into what other towns' experience has been, I guess. What do you want us to do? If you send it to us, other than check the bylaw and make sure it doesn't conflict. That's what I need to know. I mean, so I can tell my colleagues what we're supposed to do with this. So my feeling is have the school committee send it to us when they feel that there's an issue, and then we can start this process.
Anna.
So this is enabling legislation. I don't actually see why, sorry, I'm as far from my microphone as I can get. It's so loud. I don't see why this would have to be a referral because we're in live time. Okay. Sorry. I don't see why this would be a referral because there's no bylaw that we would be reviewing. We are simply saying to the school committee, if you would like to pursue this, then you can pursue this and have a bylaw that we then would review. We don't have anything to dig into unless the school committee decided to act on this. And I don't think that we should take that option away from them. All that voting yes on this does is gives the school committee the latitude to act on this should they choose to believe that, or should they believe that this is something that's necessary for the community. I don't think that we should stand in the way of that, especially because all of the surveillance aspects would come back to us for review. This isn't the last time that we would see anything. So even though, and I don't know, it seems silly to me to have all this discussion and then say, well, they didn't specifically reach out and ask for this one particular thing, therefore we're not going to even give them the option to pursue it. That just feels ridiculous. I think we should move forward with saying this is on the table should they choose to, and not bind their hands from acting, and add an extra step where they have to then come back to us with no bylaw proposed, but just say, we'd like to do a bylaw. We don't know what's in it yet. We just need to know if we can do it in the first place. Let's make the process less cumbersome for them.
Kathy.
What I think I'm hearing is TSO doesn't think they have anything to discuss, which I would partly agree with. One of the things that was pointed out last time we discussed it by, I think it was Bob Hegner, is New Jersey has had active debates on this, and several towns have tried out the cameras, and we'd be able to find out exactly what they used. And one just on a pilot was finding thousands of buses were violating it in dangerous ways. And so it's moving to be a state legislature issue. But I think there's no reason in my mind that we just wouldn't ask the school committee whether they want to consider this. And if yes, then we can move forward on it.
Councilor Brevik.
If I'm not misunderstanding, I think what Anna was saying and what I think the nuance is that I don't think we need to have the school committee come back to us to say that we are enabling legislation here. And I don't think we're saying there's not anything for TSO to discuss. It sounds like there's a lot that TSO could discuss, but not now, and not until the school committee came back around with it. So I guess I agree with Anna that I think it makes sense. And I guess as the motion is actually worded, is not a referral, is to vote tonight. And so I don't see why we wouldn't do that.
Thank you. Anna.
I just wanted to clarify one point Kathy made. Kathy, that discussion was talking about red light cameras, not school bus cameras. And it's a really important distinction that we understand that we're talking about specifically a camera that turns on when the school bus stop sign comes out, not a red light camera.
Are we about ready to conclude the discussion on the motion to refer? We do have a lot more on this agenda tonight. Paul has not spoken yet. Paul?
So I don't think the surveillance bylaw applies to the school committee. So if you approve it, they would just be able to do it.
The question I had when I looked at it last year was it requires the school committee to work with the police department somehow. So it was like, it's a gray area onto whether it would apply depending, because the whole thing was a gray area in how the statute is written. It's very confusing. So it may apply, it may not apply. It depends on, because it looked like the school committee had to work with the police department.
We were just looking at the surveillance use
Yeah.
bylaw and it excludes the school
Right,
committee and
yes,
regional school.
but it does not exclude the police department. And since they're the ones issuing the tickets, that's where it becomes a gray area.
Can I ask a point of clarification?
Sure.
You said motion to refer again. Am I misunderstanding that this is this a motion to refer somewhere?
I had two motions on the agenda, and as sponsor, I chose to make a motion to refer. If that fails, anyone could make the other one, which was a motion to adopt the enabling legislation directly. I hope that clarifies it. The motion on the table is actually to refer, but someone else could choose to make a motion to adopt the enabling if the referral fails. Paul, further questions? Sam?
Thank you, Mandy. So if I understand the discussion correctly, is it required of us to vote on this or refer it in order to enable the school committee to initiate discussion? I thought I just heard Paul indicate that it's not a bylaw surveillance issue, so they can do this on their own.
They cannot
anyway?
right now. So we have to adopt the enabling legislation first. We have to accept the MGL before the school committee can do anything.
Yeah.
I moved to refer so TSO could have this longer conversation that we're having now, because I was hoping it would be quick here to get to there. If that motion fails, there is a counselor could make a motion to actually adopt the enabling legislation directly without referral.
I misunderstood. I thought we were sending it to the school committee for some reason. You're saying send it to TSO.
This was the motion on the floor is to send it to TSO to make a recommendation on whether we should adopt enabling legislation.
That sounds like a good idea.
Anna?
Is there anything preventing us from adding and in keeping with the town of Amherst surveillance bylaw to the motion when we adopt this, even though the surveillance bylaw itself exempts them? Is there any reason why we couldn't say in this particular instance, it does apply?
I think that's something TSO could explore.
Sorry. Counselor Ryan?
So I'm going to ask you to vote this down, and I'd be happy to second a motion to approve it right here. I think Anna's argument makes sense to me. There's no harm done. If you send it to TSO, as I said, I don't have the slightest idea what we're going to talk about. It won't be very long, and we'll send it back to you, probably saying, if you want to adopt it, go ahead. So why don't we just go ahead and adopt it, is my thought. If you really want it to come to TSO, either tonight or by email, send to the committee the questions you'd like us to ask and discuss. So my suggestion is vote this down, and then let's have a motion to adopt it, and that'll be done.
Is there further discussion? Seeing none, assuming, yep, there we go. The motion on the floor is to refer the adoption of acceptance of the statute to TSO. We start with Kathy Shane.
No.
Jennifer Taub.
No.
Counselor Walker.
No.
Counselor Brevik.
No.
Counselor Cannell Martin.
No.
Andy Churchill.
No.
Anna Devon Gauthier.
No.
Lynn Griesemer.
No.
Mandy Jo Haneke is going to be an aye, but Counselor Lord.
Abstain.
Sam McLeod. Pam Rooney.
No.
And Counselor Ryan.
No.
The motion to refer fails, 2 in favor, 10 opposed, 1 abstention. Is there another motion to be made?
I move that the city known as the town of Amherst hereby accepts MGL Chapter 40, Section 71, enabling the city to install, operate, and maintain school bus violation detection monitoring systems on school buses to enforce violations pursuant to Sections 14 and 14C of Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 90. I'm going to try to ad lib here. Any system put in place shall be limited to monitoring and detecting violations of motor vehicle operators who fail to stop for a school bus and shall be in accordance with the Town of Amherst surveillance use policy.
Is there a second?
Ryan, seconds.
And by policy, you mean bylaw?
Yeah, I did. I wrote bylaw and then didn't have a number for you, so I panicked.
Just thought I'd clarify that that's supposed to say bylaw.
Thanks.
That motion has been made and seconded. Is there further discussion? Seeing none, we start with Jennifer Taub.
Yes.
Counselor Walker.
Yes.
Counselor Brevik.
Yes.
Counselor Kendall Martin.
Yes.
Andy Churchill.
Yes.
Anna Devlin Gauthier.
Aye.
Lynn Griesemer.
Aye.
Mandy Jo Haneke. Haneke is an aye. Counselor Lord.
Aye.
Sam McLeod.
Abstain.
Pam Rooney.
Yes.
Counselor Ryan.
Aye.
And Kathy Shane.
Yes.
That motion passes 12 in favor, 0 opposed. The abstain was Counselor Sam McLeod. 1 abstention. Yeah, it's still unanimous. We are moving on to item F, Charter Review Committee beyond the charter recommendations. This was pulled off of consent. The motion is to act on the following items presented by the 2024 Charter Review Committee and beyond the charter section of the report as follows. Through the town manager to request a legal opinion from the town attorney regarding the item referred to as quote, allow council to increase line items without increasing the total budget, end quote, to refer the following item to the Town Services and Outreach Committee for substantive discussion and recommendation to the Town Council by August 30th, 2026, education and information for the public on what it takes to run the town, like the recent Civic Academy, and to table the following items, regionalization opportunities. Is there a second?
Griesemer, second.
So this is a follow-up to the discussion we had, I think, 2 council meetings ago on these items to try and move them through the system. I tried to craft this motion in accordance with what I heard at that discussion on these items. Councillor Cano Martin, I believe you probably have something to say.
No, I just actually, when I saw this on the agenda, I panicked because I couldn't remember the conversation that we had and I wasn't sure what exactly we had decided and why. So I would just greatly appreciate a recap, like of why we, if anyone can remind me why we decided to do these things. It's only 3 things, right?
Yes, it's only these 3.
Okay.
I will do my best. So the regionalization opportunities is already in the charter as a manager task, so it didn't seem necessary to do anything else with it. In terms of the recommendation, TSO is already taking up conversation regarding education about what it takes to run a town, including the Rasic Civic Academy. So it's already there. This is sort of just sort of disposing it in the same way that it's already being dealt with. And the request, the legal opinion from the town attorney seemed to be before, instead of going to finance, the whole council or many councilors seem to want to say, get an idea from the attorney whether it's even possible before the council spends more time discussing whether it would want to do that. The councilors seem to coalesce around wanting to know what our town attorney thought about the possibility legally before we spent more time discussing.
I do have a follow-up question on that. Just wondering, do we not already have the opinion of the consultant that helped with the charter review report on that?
We have, I believe, a consultant opinion, but not our town attorney's opinion. I think that is Athena, that's correct, right? Yeah. Yeah. Councilor Ryan.
So here I am again, defending the TSO committee against work that it doesn't really know what to do or how to do. We have, as you mentioned, referred to us 3 items already that we are already working on, and we will certainly give you, I think, a pretty good report on. When I read this, I thought, well, I know what it takes to run the town. It takes lots and lots of money. So other than that, I mean, the Civic Academy will be included in the other items related to how residents can participate. So I really don't know what this is asking us to do. So if somebody can enlighten me, I'd be happy, but don't have no idea. I think the other items are excellent and the Civic Academy will be included. Basically the idea of making it clear various ways residents can participate in town's governance and weigh in on government decisions. So I took that to be clearly Civic Academy amongst many other things. This, I have no idea what it means. So if somebody can enlighten me, I will then enlighten my committee.
Andy.
Otherwise, I prefer this to go away.
Andy.
I'm on the committee as well, and I think this is consistent with the other items that have been forwarded our way, and have to do with better ways of letting the community know how to be involved and how to be heard and how to get information. And so we're already talking about Civic Academy as an example, so I think we can roll this into whatever we're doing. And then we can check it off the beyond the charter list as well.
Keep it as part of the.
Yeah.
Okay.
Any further discussion? Seeing Councilor Ryan, your hand is still up.
Just keep it up for the. You can mention my committee.
Seeing no further discussion, we move to a vote. Councilor Walker.
Yes.
Councilor Brevik.
Yes.
Councilor Kano Martin.
Yes.
Andy Churchill.
Yes.
Anna Devon Gauthier.
Aye.
Len Griesemer.
Aye.
Mandy Jo Haneke is an aye. Councilor Lord.
Aye.
Sam McLeod.
Aye.
Pam Rooney.
Yes.
Councilor Ryan.
Aye.
Kathy Shane.
Yes.
Jennifer Tubb.
Yes.
It's unanimous, 13 in favor, none opposed. We are moving on to item 14/8G. An item that was added under the 48-hour rule. It is an amendment to the April 27th, 2026 council vote charter section 2.8C request for information of the town manager executive order on immigration affairs. I'm going to recognize Councilor Brevik to make the motion.
Sure. So I move to amend the motion that was adopted by the town council on April 27th, 2026 as follows. In accordance with section 2.8C of the Amherst Town Charter, I move to require the town manager and any department head or heads he so chooses to appear at a special joint meeting between the Town Council, Community Safety and Social Justice Committee, and Human Rights Commission held in the month of June 2026 to answer questions and provide more detail on the statements and action items included in the executive order issued by the Town Manager's Office on March 3rd, 2026, as it relates to the interaction between town staff and federal immigration agents, with questions provided to the Town Manager 2 weeks prior to the scheduled special meeting.
Is there a second?
Second.
Councilor Kano Martin gets that second. Before I return to Councilor Brevik to discuss it, the gist of this motion is to amend something previously adopted under our rules and Robert's rules, and it's deleting the phrases before the town council at the May 18th regular town council meeting to, and instead of deleting that and adding instead a special joint meeting between the council, CSSJC, and the Human Rights Commission held in the month of June. So it's elongating the time and adding 2 committees. And then instead of by May 4th, which was today, 2 weeks prior to whenever that meeting is scheduled. So it's mostly changing dates and then adding committees. So Councilor Brevik, would you like to speak to it?
Thank you. And yeah, I think that this adjustment came from, so I am the council liaison to the Human Rights Commission, and just very recently got started tuning into the work that they're doing. Was not aware that they had interest in a similar type of meeting, and also learned that the CSSJC was similarly interested in this same type of meeting. And so to correct that misstep, I am just making this amendment that and hoping that we can combine our efforts and have a more robust conversation and question and answer by including the many different voices represented both on the HRC and the CSSJC. And I think it's worth not rushing and giving it a little more time, but I do giving it a little more time to make sure that it fits in with our existing schedule. However, I don't want to wait too long, and I would encourage a date of June 8th, if that is possible, to not wait too long, as a lot of the issues that we'll be taking up are pressing. And then, I do hope that there's a way to combine this with the meeting that Hala presented on earlier so that we can have hopefully a two-part meeting. And I see this being really an important conversation for the town to be having.
Thank you. Are there any questions or comments? I'm going to let Andy speak.
Yeah, I'm just curious about whether, does this replace the previous meeting, or is it different from the previous meeting in some way, or is it sort of, it's adding another meeting? So what's the difference between the two meetings?
So this motion is amending what we passed last week, which is a different motion than the one we just passed tonight. So they would be two different topics. One is a request for information to CSSJC. The other one is a request for information to the town manager. So they'd be two different sort of agenda items if they happen. So they are two different agenda items. They may happen at the same meeting. Does that make sense? My concern with this, and I just want to state the concern, is we are asking our counselors a lot, especially in the month of May with budget season, especially our finance committee members. And so I have large concerns when our counselors say that it's a lot of work to be on the council of adding special meetings. That's my main concern with this request, is that it is adding another meeting to counselors' plates in a very busy set of months. Counselor Ryan.
I hear you on that, but I also think this is something that I just had a district meeting yesterday at Hickory Ridge. Hall and I were there, and it's something that at least some of the residents, I think more than a few, are asking questions about. And so I think this kind of conversation is probably timely. I'm wondering if, since it's two different, if I understand this, is two different motions with two different meetings being combined into one meeting, will there be an ability for the manager to talk back and forth with CSSJC and so forth, or is it going to be literally like totally separate? Or do we know, or do you know?
So I don't have the logistics worked out in my
Yeah, I
head,
understand.
but this motion, let me just say this. This motion is a motion to request the manager provide information and provide it to a joint meeting of 3 different bodies. So that, in my initial mind, would be a conversation, sort of some sort of discussion between the 3 bodies, amongst the 3 bodies, between the 3 bodies, along with the manager providing information. So questions could come from any of the 3 bodies to the manager at that point, or amongst the bodies, but it would be under a discussion item part of an agenda. And then Counselor Lord's motion that passed earlier tonight is a motion that's focused on a discussion not between the manager and bodies, but between us and a different representative, or if it's already a joint meeting with CSSJC, it would likely continue to be a joint meeting with CSSJC instead of one representative. And that would be more of a direct discussion potentially between the council and CSSJC and that part of the special meeting. But as trying to be efficient, I would probably do my best to put them on the same special meeting. Counselor Breivik.
I'll just say I see that as a critical piece of this, that the reason for calling it as a joint meeting, so that the members of each of these bodies has the opportunity to speak and be heard and participate in discussion. I think that's a key piece of it.
Counselor Kendall Martin.
Yeah, I think it's just the most efficient thing that we could do is try to do it in the same meeting and just have them be separate agenda items. And so I do think it is, something urgent, considering constituent concerns and need for clarity around, what will happen should ICE come into our community, and just asking those follow-up questions that we talked about last time. So I do think it's really important, and also it's a great way to restore trust with the BIPOC community, especially after what happened with the racist letter that was found. And it's all the more important right now that we listen to folks. So I think it's really important to do it as soon as we can.
Thank you. Any other further comment or discussion on this motion? Seeing none, we start with Counselor Brevick.
Yes.
Counselor Cano Martin.
Yes.
Andy Churchill.
Yes.
Anna Devon Gauthier.
Aye.
Lynn Griesemer.
Aye.
Mandy Jo Haneke abstains. Counselor Lord.
Aye.
Sam McLeod.
Absent.
Oh, we'll come back if he re-enters the room. Pam Rooney.
Yes.
Counselor Ryan.
Aye.
Kathy Shane.
Abstain.
Jennifer Taub.
Yes.
Counselor Walker.
Yes.
And Counselor Sam McLeod is still absent at this point. So that is 10 in favor, none opposed. It's unanimous with 2 abstentions and 1 absent. That moves us on to appointments were on consent. We passed them on consent. I want to remind us as we get into committee and liaison, well, there were no appointments, sorry. Confusing people. It says consent and then none. There were no appointments. We did not do anything on consent with relation to appointments. We're moving on to committee and liaison reports. I want to remind people to try and keep this section of our agenda as quick as possible as we move on through to item 15, because we still have an executive session to get through and it is 9:21. So I'm going to start with any committees that need to report on anything that is not in any written reports that are town council committees. Pam Rooney.
I want to publicly announce that planning board interviews will be held on May 28th at our regular CRC time, which is 1 p.m. ZBA interviews we plan to hold on June 11 at the regular CRC meeting at 1 p.m.
Thank you. I see no other hands for council committees, town committees with councilor members. Is there anything that needs to be reported that isn't written? Pam.
Thank you. DPW. I did want to bring to attention that in moving forward, the committee approved a request for qualifications for design services, and that RFQ has been issued, made public. And I don't know if there are any other.
Thank you. Councilor Kendall Martin.
I just wanted to say and follow up that last week I raised the idea, was it possible to have hybrid meetings for this committee so that more people can attend via Zoom or watch the recordings? And I just wanted to report back that I did speak to the committee chair today, Christine Gray Muller, and she said that she would be open to starting that in August. And that she said that a lot of it will depend on having the town room available. But my understanding is that they meet during the day. So I just wanted to flag that for folks to see if that would be a possibility, given that a lot of the activity up until then may be done in executive session. So it might not make sense until August.
Thank you. Seeing no other hands, are there any liaison reports from councilors? Seeing none, we did approve minutes in consent. So that was my mistake there. So the minutes have already been approved. Paul, the town manager report.
I have nothing to report.
Excellent, thank you. Town councilor comments. President report, I did not do one this week because, there's only 5 days between reports and there's not much to report. I do want to remind councilors before we move on to future agenda items that as a legislative body, we act and affect change on motions and measures, and that any proposed measure, particularly proposals to adopt or revise general or zoning bylaws, you should be thinking about submitting them soon if you've got them, because it can take a while to get them into committee, out of committee, back to council, 2 readings and all of that. 2 years goes by really quick and all. So if you're looking at trying to make permanent changes to any bylaws or add bylaws and all, start thinking about getting those in form and proposing them and submitting them in writing. And as Athena was just gesturing, she would love to help you with that or talk to her about that and submit them to her and ask her about that. So that's that. I just wanted to say that as a president report. Future agenda items. May 18th has tentatively the rental registration report as a presentation item. Given the votes tonight, it will not have the 2.8 request for information regarding the executive order. It has Pride Month proclamation. It potentially has a relocation of a polling place in precinct 2B. Human Rights Commission general bylaw, possibly. We'll see if that's out of GOL. And then if we've got time, and at this point, it looks like we might have time on an agenda beyond the charter discussion. The only things left to deal with are sort of the major charter changes. So I expect that discussion to take a while as to when we discuss, do we want to, what does that look like and all of that. So I think I need a little more time on that one than we've had in the past. So I don't know whether it'll fit on it or not on May 18th. There's a possibility for some public way changes if the Transportation and Parking Commission has made any recommendations on some. And there's the possibility of a letter in support of a State House bill. And I received today a request from a number of counselors for an executive session related to union negotiations. So I'll be discussing that in agenda setting tomorrow. Is there any other future agenda items? Counselor Kendall Martin.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that I submitted the request about the DPW contract so that we can have an opportunity to converse with the town manager about what the remaining obstacles are to settling the contract. And that was requested by myself, Counselor Ryan, Jennifer Taub, Jill Brevick, and Counselor Walker. So I just wanted to say that out loud. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other future agenda items? Seeing none, any further counselor comments? Kathy Shane.
I'm not sure it's an agenda item yet, but over the weekend, when we went to a legislative briefing, there's a potential that there would be an amendment that we would all, an amendment to the income tax that would be a citizen referendum that would lower the state income tax that would be devastating to all of us. So it would be nice to get an update. Lynn said that the legality of it's now in question, because I would actually go out and go door to door to try to defeat it if it's actually there. I didn't realize it was potentially going to be up for us to vote on in November.
It is one that is potentially on the November ballot as a citizen initiative. Yeah.
I would just like an up, it doesn't have to be next time. It would be an update. If it's goes away, I would just like to know it's gone away as opposed to be surprised by it.
I will add that to this week. We have our monthly meeting with the senator and Rep Dom and Senator Comerford. So I will add it to talking with them about it. Anything else on future agenda items? Seeing none, we already dealt with topics not anticipated by the chair, and so we are moving into, I'm going to make a motion in accordance with Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 21A6, to consider the purchase, exchange, lease, or value or real property, 893 West Street. The chair declares that an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the negotiating position of the public body. The town council will not return to open session. Is there a second?
Second, Griesmer.
Is there discussion? Seeing no discussion, we will move to a vote. We start with Counselor Cano Martin, and this is a vote to move into executive session.
Yes.
Andy Churchill.
Yes.
Anna Devlin Gauthier.
Aye.
Lynn Griesemer.
Aye.
Mandy Jo Haneke is an aye. Counselor Lord.
Aye.
Sam McLeod.
Aye.
Pam Rooney.
Yes.
Counselor Ryan.
Aye.
Kathy Shane.
Yes.
Jennifer Taub.
Yes.
Counselor Walker.
Yes.
and Counselor Breve.
Yes.
It is unanimous. We are going to move into executive session. What this means is we will log off on our present Zoom session and log into a Zoom link that is provided for the executive session. We are now entering that executive session, so you can log off now.